Today's topic is probably it could be one of the more important presentations that you ever see because it's not just about working on large law firms. It's about how to think about your career and how to be successful as a law firm attorney, which I would say probably 95% of all attorneys that graduate from law school are not. Most people think about their careers in the wrong way. They don't understand really what they're doing in a law firm as a even as a junior associate all the way up to a lot of partners and what it takes to succeed, why you should be or not be in a large law firm. And I'm going to kind of go into that today. If you think that working in a large law firm is like your dream and your best career choice, I'm going to tell you why it may not be. I'm going to talk to you about kind of the psychology it takes to succeed in both large and small law firms, and also the entire point of getting a law degree, which essentially is once you pass the bar, is a license to do business. And so most people think it may be a license to work, but it's actually a license to do business. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and then go into quite a bit of detail about how different people think about their careers and how the most successful people do. And just at the outset, I mean, one of the things that people do is everyone kind of has a filter, like the way they view the world. And you view it based on your past experience, about how you want to see things, about how you've been taught to see things. And you take those filters and you kind of apply them to your job and to your life. And so the most successful attorneys typically have a certain type of filter that they look at their career with. And I've been seeing this for 25 years. There are people in large law firms, ones that I've worked at, where the profits per partner are like over $8 million a year. There are firms where it's, 500,000 a year, but the people that are able to get to kind of that level of $8 million, $5 million plus per year, all have a similar filter that they view their practice with. And it doesn't matter really where you went to law school. It doesn't matter, what practice area you're in. It doesn't matter if you're a large or small law in a small law firm. You can succeed at a very, very high level if you learn kind of the whole purpose of these filters and how they work and how people that are successful see the world. There's a thing called neuro-linguistic programming, which is a kind of a way that people will go out and they'll model sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of it with kinesthetics and stuff, but they will look at what people are doing that are successful and they will just copy that. And they will copy that when they find people that are successful, then they will often become even more successful than the people they're copying with. They'll move into different environments and then they'll become even more successful there. So I'm going to teach you today sort of about the most important filters that you should be viewing your career with. It doesn't matter if you're a law student. It doesn't matter if you're a junior attorney, a senior attorney. This filter, once you understand it, can literally change your life and the whole direction of your career and what happens to you. And it doesn't matter if you apply this filter to large law firms. It doesn't matter if you apply it to small law firms. It doesn't matter if you apply it to a solo practice. It doesn't matter if you apply it to being a sophisticated corporate securities attorney, or if you're a personal injury attorney, immigration attorney, whatever the practice area you're in. If you understand these filters, you're going to be very, very successful because all, success leaves clues. And so those clues are things that I've seen over 25 years of talking to the most successful attorneys in the United States on a regular basis, as well as unsuccessful attorneys that become successful and all sorts of people. So once you understand this information, your career and your life may never be the same. So this is a live webinar. So because it's a live webinar, I will take questions at the end. So I'll do the presentation. And then if you have any questions that you can think of that I'm not that you would like the answers to, regardless of whether or not it's related to the presentation, then I will answer them at the end of the webinar. And so, I would encourage everyone to stick around for questions because it's usually often the best, where people learn the most. So, regardless of, the whatever stage of your career, it doesn't matter if you're a senior attorney, a junior attorney, whatever it is. If you're working in a law firm, there's really only three reasons to do that. The first is to learn a skill that's in demand in the business world, meaning that you can sell, that people will buy, and it's in demand. So you can use that later to get clients, not just to work and get another job doing that skill, but to actually get clients. And getting clients is really the whole name of the game when you practice law. There's really nothing else to it. I know a guy he was actually, I think, the youngest graduate at Harvard Law School, maybe in history. And then he went to Harvard Law School and he did like exceptionally, I mean, when he was there, he did exceptionally well. And he got, all these offers from top law firms, in Los Angeles, where he was from. And he got to Gibson Dunn and he was there for like 3 years. And he realized that, getting clients was going to be something that would take him a long time. And just as he was, had gone to law school very early, he wanted to succeed very early. So he decided that that was not a good path for his career. He actually started a personal injury firm with someone that he knew. And he realized that, marketing and getting clients was the whole name of the game. Personal injury, there's just causation. So if you get a client, you sue, you're always going to make money. You just have to figure out if you're going to sell it or what, or settle it or whatever you're going to do. But he did that and, now as a firm of like 120 people. And he did that in like 3 years. And I mean, he got the, firm on a very quick upward trajectory. And all he does is market. And he has other people that help him with the cases, but most of his job, he said 95% of it is marketing, getting clients. So regardless of the practice area you're in, you have to learn a skill if you're in a law firm that's in demand to get clients. The other thing that you need to do is you need to use the firm, as an entrepreneurial platform to solve problems that are encountered by businesses or individuals. That's pretty much what it is. And then you need to learn how to run a business and sell your business to those willing to pay whatever the law firm prices are for the business. So as you can see here, like all of this is about getting business. All of it's about getting the right platform for business. All of this is about learning how to run a business. And you need to make no mistake about it. I mean, you have a skill that you sell in the market, so you are a business. And so everybody in a law firm should think of themselves as a business. And so if you want to work in a law firm for any other reason, just because you want to make a lot of money, for example, in a large law firm, then that's not really, the right reason to work there. I mean, you can learn a skill that you can sell to in-house companies or whatever if you want to go to work there. But there's really, no other reason to be working in a law firm other than that. So here are the reasons, the wrong reasons to work in a large law firm. The first is for money. Money is not the most important thing because if you make money, this is not, getting paid a salary inside of a law firm is not a path to great wealth. So a salary, unless you are investing and living very frugally and stuff, is not going to get you to an economic position, when the kind of economic position you may want to be in if your goal is to make money. Anybody that makes money, is making money because they're selling something in the market for a lot of money and they have people that are willing to pay them for that money. So if you're motivated enough to work in a large law firm, to go to school, get the kind of grades you need to work in a large law firm, and to go to a really good, law school or whatever, and get into a really good firm, with that level of motivation, if your goal is to make money, I can tell you that you can make far more money doing things like being a really talented real estate agent or starting a very profitable chain of restaurants or whatever it is. You can make a lot more money with that level of dedication, putting in those hours, having, the motivation. You can make a lot more money doing other things. And so very motivated people that are only motivated by money inside of a law firm, you need to understand that if you're doing some sort of business and you have that sort of motivation, the odds are very good that you'll make a lot more money doing something else. So, if you are working in a large law firm, a lot of times you're not building anything. You're just working as an employee. You don't have clients that are returning to you throughout your career. And you're not sitting like anonymously behind a desk all day, making mistakes and worrying constantly about losing your job. And what does that mean? Excuse me. That means if you open some sort of business and the business is successful, people are going to come to you again and again, and you're going to have almost like an annuity and a constant income stream. But if your goal is not to, to work in a law firm, you're not always going to have if you're just working there, you're not going to have an ongoing income stream. It's just not going to happen. And you're going to eventually, if you don't bring in business, in most firms, you will lose your job. A lot of people believe that working in a large law firm gives them employment security. And that's not the case. You have to, in order to get business, you have to, get get work from other attorneys. You have to get paid, well, you get paid what the business, the law firm decides to pay you, and you have to get work inside from people inside the law firm. And a lot of people believe that, they belong in large law firms just because, they're smart, they got their grades, and they believe that this will provide them long-term success. And for most attorneys, that's not correct. Most attorneys do not experience long-term success that go to work in law firms, at large law firms. Now, the ones that do, by the way, it's exceptional. I mean, the practice of law, if you stick with it and if you are able to succeed in large law firms and do the things that you need to do, you can be extraordinarily successful, unbelievably successful. But that sort of level of success is only reserved for people that are doing certain things. And that means they're running their careers like a business and they're learning how to get business, because what happens to the majority of attorneys, and just so you understand, if you feel badly that you're not in a large law firm and you think it's just something you need to do as an employee, you're not going to have employment stability for very long, because you will work very, very long hours. You will end up in a position where after several years, the law firm is generally going to ask you to leave. You won't have any employment security, and it's very, very scary. I deal with attorneys all the time that, somehow, oftentimes they worked in large law firms for like 8 or 10 years. I end up getting them another job in another large law firm that's very, very busy. At a certain point in time, they work there for 1 or 2 years, and then they lose that job and they literally can't find anything else. Sometimes they're in very niche practice areas like project finance or something, but their career is just over, and it's scary. I mean, these are people that go to the best law schools and then are the smartest and work hard, but that's just not enough, because you're not necessarily building a long-term income stream when you're working in a large law firm unless you do the things I'm going to talk to you about today. So, when you do work in a large law firm, you may or may not end up with marketable skills. Most attorneys that work in large law firms do learn how to practice law at a very high level, meaning they learn how to not make mistakes, how to think through problems, how to be thorough, and all sorts of things that are very good training. But at some point, you have to realize that, if that's all you're doing, you may have wasted years of your life because you haven't built a recurring income stream. And what does a recurring income stream mean? It means that people and clients and things are coming to you with problems over and over again, and they're referring friends to you and they're referring other people to you, and you have an income stream of work that you can constantly do. But most attorneys do not think about their careers that way. They think about sitting down at a desk, working, and hoping advancement comes. And that's just not what happens. And the law firm will give you as much work as you can do, but you're never going to amount to anything unless you're able to get a really good recurring income stream. And this is a real problem that attorneys have, is they don't think about their careers that way. And so what does a recurring income stream mean? So a lot of people think if they become an expert in certain practice areas, like say they become an IP litigator, they become, whatever it is. A lot of times when they get to the point in a firm where there's no more advancement, they will do things like go in-house and think that that's employment stability. But most people that go in-house, just so you understand, those jobs do not last long, and they lose jobs, and you understand how hard it is to get an in-house job, and then they can't find other in-house jobs. And then law firms won't hire them because they don't have a preference for that practice area. They're too senior. So they lose an ongoing income stream. I was working with a guy recently that's an IP litigator and was at big firms for like 10 or 12 years. He went in-house, he lost his job after 2 years, and he spent 2 years looking for another law firm job. 2 years, and he was able to get one at a small firm, but even there, he's not going to have employment stability. But he walked out of something without business. He has to find someone that's going to give him the work. He's going to get the work as long as they give him the work, but then that income stream is going to dry up. So this particular model, where people think they can work in large law firms without business, or they think they can stay employed forever, there is absolutely no employment stability doing that. It's very, very hard for people that don't have any work to find people to give it to them when they get senior. And so, when you get more senior, by the way, you're not going to be, and you realize that there's no potential and you're not going to be getting ahead. You're going to get bitter. And you're going to get bitter because the law firm's not going to treat you as well. And they love bringing in junior associates and mid-level associates that are very hungry, that are fresher, that are still trying to make partner. They're going to put in all these hours. But if you get senior, the firms believe that you're not as hungry anymore, and you're not. And so because you're not as hungry, they replace you with people that are hungrier. And, so if you don't bring in business and you don't have work, you're going to need to go to, you're going to need to go somewhere that doesn't rely on your ability to bring in business. And so what does that mean? That means going into corporations. That means going to work for the government. That means quitting the practice of law entirely. I'm seeing right now in Washington, D.C., because of all these DOGE cuts, I'm seeing these people that went to Yale Law School, Stanford, like all this stuff, got positions in the State Department and all these prestigious government organizations, just losing their jobs, like taking buyouts or getting fired completely, and no one will hire them. They're just kind of out of luck. And that's very scary because you can't rely on the government to continue giving you work. You can't rely on a corporation to keep giving you work, and you can't rely on a law firm to keep giving you work. So that's really what it boils down to. Like, do you want to be part of that group of people that regardless of your smarts, you're going to always have to rely on other people to give you work? And when that stops, you have absolutely no way to keep going because you don't have clients and other people giving you recurring work. If you choose to be in a law firm and you learn how to develop business and you learn how to do all this stuff, you're going to be practicing law as long as you want. And you'll probably love it because you're got people calling you, you're in demand, you can charge people a lot of money for your time. A law firm works for you and not the other way around. And you can practice into your 80s doing this. It's amazing. And it's literally, if you learn how to bring in business, it can be an incredible career. And, practice of law has never been about just doing the work. Lawyers are paid by the market to the extent that they provide marketable skills that people want. And if you feel like you can be supported by other lawyers and not the market, and the market is clients coming to you for work, it doesn't even matter, by the way, what your practice area is. I've seen attorneys, like I know some people that have left. When I know one guy that was involved in my divorce, by the way, he's my opposing counsel, but he'd worked at Quinn Emanuel for like 7 or 8 years, doing very well. But he realized that the odds of him being able to bring in the type of clients they had and all this other stuff wasn't good. So he started a family law boutique where he was the only family law attorney. Now he's got a decent sized firm. He's doing family law. You don't need to graduate from Stanford Law School in order to practice family law. Anybody can practice family law, but he made the decision to go in a place where he could get clients. So if you want to be supported by people, and this is really the most important thing, you are going to be subject to periodic layoffs if your practice area slows down. You are going to lose your job. If the law firm just decides they don't want you around, you're going to be in a position of begging for work for other attorneys and trying to find work constantly from other attorneys and law firms. You're going to have to often move across the country for a job, and you're always going to have to worry in the back of your mind if you're going to have a job and people are going to continue giving you work. And when they give you work, you have to work as hard as you possibly can for them and give them the results they want. You would have to do that for a client too. But when you're working for other attorneys, that can be very scary. And this is something that is the future of almost all attorneys that go to work in law firms. They don't treat themselves like businesses. And this is especially true for people that go to the best law schools. They think that the law firms are blessed to have them, and that because of their smarts and because of their backgrounds. They never realize that it's all about being a business and getting recurring revenue. And it doesn't even matter, by the way, if you're at a large law firm or small law firm, like I said. The only thing that matters is if you're able to have recurring work. Recurring revenue is the lifeblood of any business. No business can survive unless it has recurring revenue coming in consistently, like month after month. That's just how it works. So here's the right, way to think about working in a large law firm. It's a means of building a business. So first of all, with your career and your life, basically, and regardless of whatever practice area you're in, you have to understand that you're a business. Every attorney is a business. They're not anything else. You're not a worker. You have to think of yourself as a business. And it's very, very important if you want to work in a large law firm, you have to think of it as a way of building business eventually. And it doesn't need to be in the large law firm. But if you're not working in a law firm as a means of building a business, meaning setting yourself up for recurring revenue, being something that's out there in the market that people want, then you're in trouble. So what does that mean? So I know one woman, it's a very interesting story. She was working at a large IP firm in Silicon Valley. And when she was there, she got this expertise in the firm doing software as services agreements, which there's not a lot of people out there doing that. So she did that for 3 or 4 years. And that was very smart. She got this like expertise in this. And then when the firm went out of business, I think it was called Penny and Emmons. When the firm went out of business, she walked out into the market, built a website saying she did software services. All of a sudden, people from all over the world were contacting her because she was the only person that did software services for a job. And that, very, very interesting. So that no one else could, there weren't people in other law firms doing it. She could do it at a lower cost. And so she literally put herself into a position where she was building a business because she understood, what she needed to do in order, or she had a marketable skill that the market wanted, and there was no one else doing it. Very, very smart. So worked in a large law firm, and that was a way for her to basically walk out of there and start a business and have recurring revenue. It was interesting to me. I'll just tell you a quick story. When I was like 16 or 17, I was working in the summers as a garbage man. And working as a garbage man basically means you're just sitting on the back of the truck, getting off and picking up bags of trash and throwing them in the little hopper and then, crushing it. And, when it got to whatever, that was my job. And so I was doing that for about 3 weeks. And then I realized that at the Department of Public Works, there were people that were painting lines on the roads, and then also doing patching of asphalt. And I realized that that was kind of a skill that I could do in parking lots, as a business, the patching of the asphalt I could do as a business. So I learned how to do those over a period of 2 summers. And then I decided the next summer that there was a demand in the market from commercial parking lots, from homeowners needing patching and all this stuff. I took those skills and I built it into a business that basically I did my last year of high school, that I did and made a bunch of money. I did all through college. I did in law school. I did after law school. And that was a very marketable skill. I learned a lot about asphalt. And I would go out at a very young age when I was like, 24, 25, and I wouldn't leave my house unless I felt that I was going to make over $5,000 that day, all from learning something, a marketable skill that I learned because I was a garbage man and wanted to do something where I felt like I could develop a skill. So if you think of your role in a law firm any other way than to develop a marketable skill that you can sell in the market, you're just not going to succeed. You can coast for 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, and feel good about making a large salary. But eventually, if you don't develop a business, you're going to lose your job. And then you're going to have a very, very difficult time finding a new job. And you're never going to reach your full potential as an attorney. And you're never going to feel secure. So I realize this may be hard to accept, that working in a large law firm or wherever is just a salary position and you're an employee and you can succeed in the long run doing that. But it's the truth. Law firms exist, by the way. People don't really understand why they exist, but they're basically places where attorneys that have business can go, and the law firm has a brand, and the law firm will provide secretarial services, paralegals, office space, different attorneys they can refer work out to, associates to do the work. That's what a law firm's for. A law firm exists for partners with business. It serves no other purpose. And it exists for partners with business, and then it takes that business and it builds itself up. And law firms, by the way, are huge. I mean, some of them have, $1 billion, $2 billion in revenue. That revenue all comes from partners with business. And then it comes from associates and stuff doing the work. But if you don't bring in work, you're going to be a dead weight. There's no reason for partners to keep you around when your billing rate's too high, when the clients would prefer to have the partner doing the work instead of a highly paid associate. And you become basically dead weight, and you're going to eventually lose your job. Now, you may be able to move to a smaller job, a firm with work. You may be able to get an in-house job, but most law firms do not hire large law firms, people with 8 years of experience to walk in without business. They just don't. They would prefer to have hungrier, younger people. And so unless you are in a position where you're developing something that you can use for a business and you're thinking about it that way, then you're not going to succeed. Now, I told you the story earlier about a litigator that was from Quinn Emanuel, the one started a family law firm. Now, he learned how to be a very good litigator doing that. He learned how to write good briefs and things. And so he looked at that experience that he got as something that would make him an exceptional family lawyer. And he was right. So, but law firms never pay the people who do the work very well. I mean, they don't pay them anywhere near what they could make on the open market if they had a skill. And they're just commodities who are easily replaceable. I was talking to a firm in Florida a couple months ago, and there were like maybe 12 partners there and 15 or 16 associates, and all the partners were getting ready to merge into a larger firm. And I was like, helping them work on this merger. And I said, are you going to bring, the associates with you? And he said, no, we don't need associates. We can always, the other firm has associates, and associates are easy to find. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this firm is a decent sized firm. They've got all these associates there that have been working, in some cases 7, 8 years for the same firm. And they're just, in the middle of a merger, they're just not even thought of. They're just kind of like, who cares? They're just like people doing the work, easily replaceable. So think about that. I mean, this is how law firms think. And, if you're just working and you don't have anything special about you, and you could have very good relationships with certain partners that may be giving you work, which is good. That's a form of recurring revenue. But in most cases, you're going to be easily replaceable. People that, need to do the work have all these other issues. I mean, they need to be on their best behavior. They often need to put in FaceTime in the office. They must, not upset anyone important. You upset one important person, you can get blackballed by the entire firm. You must not make any serious mistakes. If you make a serious mistake as a partner, you deal with it. If you make a serious mistake as an associate, then you can lose your job very, very quickly. I've seen people, been at firms 6, 7 years, and then they stay up all night for 2 nights working on a transaction. And then there's a signing of the transaction the next morning, and they haven't slept for 48 hours, and then they oversleep and miss it and then get fired. I mean, all these things is just absolutely crazy. So if you just do the work, you're always going to be sort of on probation. The people who bring in the work are the ones the law firms need. People who have the work are in demand from law firms. If you're in a law firm and you have a couple of $1 million in business and you don't like the law firm for whatever reason, they're messing with your compensation, you don't like things that are going on there, it's very, very easy to take your clients and go to another firm. Anybody can. But you can't do that as an associate or someone that doesn't have business. And people who bring in work are very much in demand. People who bring in work have client contact. They're talking to clients, they're strategizing, they're talking about the best way to do the work. They're talking about, how to staff things. They're getting to think high level thoughts. They're the ones making the decisions, the ones, and people who bring in the work, they're essentially running the business. Anytime you encounter a high powered lawyer or someone that's a partner in a law firm, they are just people that are running businesses inside the law firm and using the law firm basically as a franchise to service them. So to be truly successful in a law firm, you can't just walk in there and think you're going to be smart. You need to be savvy, and you need to have business skills and sensibilities. I was working with an attorney in Chicago, one of the largest law firms in the world. And he had been very interesting, smart guy. While he was practicing law, they made him an equity partner. While he was practicing law, he wrote all of these very consequential, like law review articles, that were in, top 10 law school, law reviews and things, and just very, very like smart and just a general commercial litigator. We didn't have any business. And then one day the law firm came to him and was just like, we don't need you anymore. And they were paying him all this money, and they just decided, like, this is not someone that we need to pay this much money to. And so he lost his job. I mean, just think about that. I mean, smart as you possibly can be, great pedigree, appellate court clerkships and things. But he didn't have business skills. And because he didn't have business skills, he lost his job. So, in most cases, some of the most successful lawyers are not the smartest in the sense of book smarts. They didn't go to the best school. They didn't get the best grades or the best test scores. I know of two attorneys, and I know a lot of attorneys, but I know of two attorneys. One went to like Southwestern Law School in Los Angeles and went at night and didn't do well. The other went to Loyola Law School, didn't do well, and they didn't have summer clerkships at law firms, and they got out of school and couldn't get jobs. And these two people, one of them got like a job working for a personal injury attorney as a sole practitioner. The other had some friend from law school that was referring the personal injury cases. He didn't want to work into him. And both of these guys became enormously successful, like within a short period of time, like 6 or 7 years, like with, law practices that were, grossing like $15 to $50 million a year. And they were making a lot of money, like, flying around on fractional jets and stuff instead of paying, I mean, just tons of money. So, and none of them had good test scores, but they learned how to market the skill of being a personal injury attorney, which I guess means getting referrals. It means, doing PPC ads on Google, of, putting things on buses. I don't know, but they did well. And there's so many countless attorneys who are not successful, who went to the best law schools, appeared to have the best credentials, but their careers never go anywhere near that because they don't run businesses. So successful attorneys, regardless of who they are, I mean, regardless of their pedigree, are the ones that are able to get work. And, if you work in a large law firm, you should think that it's not just to get work, but it's a training ground to be an entrepreneur and build business, whether it's at that law firm or somewhere else or doing something else. So here's what, successful lawyers know. So the first thing is a law firm will pay you a lot of money while it's training you. That's just kind of the way it works. And you're front loading a lot of compensation earlier in your career, hopefully that you can keep that going, but you're front loading a lot of that. Once you do learn a marketable skill, whether it's becoming a commercial litigator, becoming a patent attorney, or whatever it is, then the law firm will have a platform, meaning you can bring in work to that law firm using the brand of the law firm, using the work that your skills and what you're doing. You can bring in law firm and get to business to that law firm and get business, hopefully. Once you get business, then the law firm is going to do all this stuff for you. It's going to hire people for you. It's going to fire them. It's going to work on their benefits. It's going to do office space. It's going to give you even a percentage of the profits of the entire enterprise, not just yours, but partners will get distributions based on the profitability of the entire firm. So you'll make money off of this giant law firm, even if you're not doing the work, if you become an equity partner. So, and then if you don't like what the law firm's giving you, like you could be a partner at Melvin E. Myers or whatever, you don't like their support, you don't think they're hiring best attorneys, you don't like their compensation, you don't like the amount of money you're making, you can just move to another place. It's very, very easy. So the law is an amazing business as a partner. I mean, you can, make an incredible amount of money once you get business, but you need to understand that you need to have a marketable skill and you need to sell it. That's it. So once you get a marketable skill and you can sell that, then you're going to do very well. But it's all about getting a marketable skill that you can sell. Becoming a partner in a law firm, you're running a business, and you can do this in short order. I mean, people figure it out. So regardless of the stage of your career, you can end up making millions of dollars a year and having a lot of career stability if you're able to do well at this. So, and learn how to do all this. So if you don't learn how to do this, you're just playing Russian roulette with your career. You're never having that much employment stability in a law firm. And, I have so many stories about people that, have gotten senior and there's just nothing there for them. It's difficult because your family relies on you, your kids, it's your sense of pride. I just see people all the time that get to the stage where they're senior, many times they're made like the best associate in their class. They're made income partners. They make income partner and they're told they have a couple years to find business. And when they don't do it, they lose their job and they get divorced and I mean, it's horrible. So you're never going to have employment stability. You're never going to have control over your life. You're never going to feel truly safe buying a home, and you're always going to be on needles with your career in life. And there's no other reason to work inside a law firm unless you want to learn a skill that you can have your own business with. So what does that mean? So if you're in a large law firm and you decide that you're going to be I don't care, when securities attorney or corporate M&A attorney, that's a skill. And it's a good skill because you can sell it for a ton of money to businesses and things that need that skill. But you need to learn that that's whatever the skill you're learning is something that will enable you to become a business person and bring in clients. And if that's not what you're thinking about, and you don't think that you can do that, you don't think that you can do that in a large law firm, you can move to a smaller law firm, or you can do it in a different practice area. But you have to be thinking in the long run, is this a business that clients will pay me money for? And this is a law firm really is an incredible entrepreneurial business. People don't think of lawyers as necessarily entrepreneurial, but they are. The real success and the money and the power comes when you have the ability to sell your skills to law firm clients. And law firms, there's three types of people. There's what are called grinders, which are the people that are, churning out the work. And then there's minders, which are kind of like the people that are on management committees and things and setting policy and all that kind of thing. And then there's binders, which are the people that go out and actually generate work. And of all those people, like the grinders are dispensable. Even the minders are dispensable because you can always find other people to come in and manage things. So the only people that are really essential are the binders, and that's it. And so this is what you need to think to aspire to. If you don't aspire to this, then it's very, very dangerous working in a law firm. And you need to learn as much as you can. You need to, and then once you've learned that, you need to figure out if that's something that you can end up marketing to whatever. But you're only going to succeed is to the extent that you're able to bring in work. And again, bringing in work does not have to be in a large law firm. You can learn the skills though to bring in work in your practice area if you want to and become successful. You can do all sorts of things. I've known attorneys that were corporate attorneys, general corporate attorneys inside large law firms, and they decided that they wanted to start their own practice doing corporate work for smaller clients. And that's a marketable skill. And they were able to do that successfully. And so all these things are possible, but you need to learn a marketable skill. And the skill you learn has to be something that the market values. So you have to have a skill that people will pay for. So, since this is, the first part of your career, you need to get training in that skill. You can't become successful mergers and acquisition attorney or project finance attorney or patent attorney or commercial litigator without best possible training. So large law firms provide incredible training, but you need to get a skill, and you need to get a skill that's marketable. People go into large law firms all the time and they will learn skills that aren't necessarily marketable, and that's dangerous. They may learn how to trademark law. Trademark law can be a very good skill when the market's good for trademarks and then the market can slow down. But that could be a good skill. If you want to set up a firm where you do trademarks for small businesses, that's a skill. You can learn all sorts of skills. You can learn, skills in different practice areas. But whatever that skill is that you're learning in a large law firm needs to be something that you can sell on the open market. And then you need to have a marketable skill. And the marketable skill needs to be something you can sell. So the only reason, by the way, to go into the best large law firms, is really at the beginning of your career is to get training. So you get training, so it's very good to work in large law firms. You get training by the best possible attorneys. You get to be around very, very smart people. And that's the reason why you want to go to the best law school. That's the reason you want to do as well as you can, because you want to get into the firms with the best reputation and that are going to do the best training. And then once you get an offer there, you can work there and stay there for a certain length of time. And then you can move to even a better one if you want. Once you get skills. But, if you're being trained, it's possible, that, you want to get the best training possible. And you need to be someplace that, if you are moving firms, you typically want to move firms because you're going to get better training, or maybe you're going to become an expert more in your practice area that's sellable. But the only reason to go to the best possible, basically the best possible law firm, is to get the training and then to try to, model and be around, the most successful people, and how to learn how to be a good attorney that you can sell in your practice area in the open market. There's absolutely no other reason to work such long hours unless you want to get that training. My office mate in the second firm I worked at was no longer in business, is Dewey Valentine in Los Angeles, and they had an exceptional real estate practice. And so I had an office mate that was very entrepreneurial, and he went to Stanford Law School, did very well there, and he became a real estate attorney. He sat there for 3 or 4 years, just churning out all this real estate work. And while he was doing that, he was in the process of buying properties with his family and negotiating real estate transactions. He also was in the process of, learning, all this stuff. And then he left and he set up his own practice doing real estate transactional law, and became very, very successful, and, very successful. And to the extent that he was buying, large buildings and negotiating rent, the contracts with the tenants and everything. And he learned a skill, and that skill was something you could sell the open market. It was very, very good. So, once you realize, that, you get into a large law firm, you have the gift of working with lots of different types of partners. You're getting good training. And that's basically it. Just like this guy I talked to you about that went to Stanford, that became a real estate attorney, and he got that training because he wanted to have a skill that he could sell in the open market, and that allowed him to create his own business outside of a traditional law firm and be successful. So what a law firm does, by the way, the better law firm you get into, and you should try to get into the best law firm you can early in your career or as a mid-level associate. It's going to make you much more detail oriented. It's going to make you much thorough, and it's going to make you plot along and think through matters in a way that attorneys that never get that training can't do. I used to have a law firm, and it was a law firm that was handling different corporate and other matters that are litigation and stuff that BCG and other companies I own have. And I'll never forget, I hired a guy that got this award when he graduated from the University of Texas Law School. And they didn't rank people, but they had this award that they would give to the top 3 students in their class. And he got that award. And so he was very, very smart. And he graduated from law school. He decided he didn't want to work in a large law firm, and he set up his own solo practice. And so he decided that he needed to have, recurring income coming in, because he wasn't making enough money with his solo practice. And this was about 3 years after he graduated from law school. And so the first assignments I gave him, like different things, related to litigation stuff, he turned it in, and the work was horrible. It was just like, at such a low quality, I couldn't believe it, because no one ever trained him. And then I gave him input, and he got very, very upset. And then he quit. And then he came back and said, I still want to work there and all this stuff. But his work never rose to the level that it would have risen to had he gotten that training. And because he didn't get that training, he never ended up anywhere near, what he should have been as an attorney in terms of those sorts of, habits and stuff. But he actually ended up starting a personal injury firm and doing very, very well. And so, he had the skill, and he, whatever, he learned that, but he never got the kind of training to be the type of attorney he could be. And so that's why joining a large law firm is important. You're going to get that training. It's going to make you a better attorney. And it's almost a gift. I mean, when you graduate from law school, you don't know what you're doing. And you don't even really know what you're doing in a practice area until you've been doing it about 5 years. So why not get the best training possible to become the best possible attorney? It changes you. It changes your mindset. It changes how you think about things. It shows you how to do work at the highest standard. So it's very important to get into the best law firm you can. It's even more important to move to better firms. It's often even more important to get into different practice areas that are going to be more marketable, where you're going to learn different skills. You learn different skills if you're a commercial litigator working for companies than you do if you're working for an insurance company that's trying to settle a bunch of auto accident skills or cases. You learn different skills. You learn how to think about matters in a lot of depth because you have clients that are willing to pay a lot of money for it, companies as opposed to insurance companies. So your goal, though, in any law firm is to get training in something where you're going to be able to market it and bring in clients. So the more, more of a specialist you are in something that's marketable in the market, the better off you're going to be. All these sorts of things need to come, into, you thinking about how am I going to bring in business? How am I going to do all this? And there are certain practice areas, by the way, where if you take a look at them and you think, am I ever going to bring in business in them? That's probably not the best practice area. Like, are you ever going to bring in business when your specialist, your skill is doing initial public offerings for large corporations? I mean, that's going to be pretty hard for you to bring in business. But people figure it out, but at the same time, maybe a different practice area would work. I mean, patent attorneys, for example, all the time go into law firms and then they leave and they have a marketable skill and people will pay them for it and they can sit at home doing it. There's patent attorneys like that all over the country. As a matter of fact, I would say a significant percentage of patent attorneys are like that. They go to law firms, they get the training, and then they leave, and it's very easy for them to get business because they understand what they do. And typically they have an edge. Like they might be working on microchips, patent attorney or something that is different. Or like the woman I told you about that learned how to do the software services contracts. I mean, you have to learn a skill that has some sort of edge that makes it different, and then you can market that because there's not that type of work readily available in the market. There was a time a couple of years ago, it's no longer the case, but there was a time a couple of years ago when, data privacy was a very marketable skill. So there are not a lot of attorneys out there that had that experience. And so all of a sudden, people that had that skill, even inside of law firms, like they might have been doing as an associate, all of a sudden, all these people were seeking them out because there was so much demand all of a sudden for that skill. I know one woman that was like a 6-year associate in Washington, D.C., doing data privacy work. She got some training in it. I don't know exactly what happened, but she kind of became the resident expert as an associate, by the way, in this large law firm doing this. And all of a sudden, just because she was on the website talking about all this data privacy stuff, people started calling her. And within like 1 or 2 years, she had like a $5 million book of business. And she called me and she was basically still getting paid as an associate. And I was like, geez, you could move to other firms and make well over $1 million a year. And she couldn't believe it. I mean, back then she was making maybe $250,000 a year or something. And that's actually exactly what ended up happening. Now, I didn't get her the job. She got it through, I think, once I told her how marketable she was, she called every recruiter she could in Washington, D.C. to learn about opportunities and ended up moving someplace that I didn't place her in. But that's exactly what happened to her. She had the skill that there was no one in the market doing and was very, very marketable. Very, very smart people to do things like that. So learning a marketable skill. And so most attorneys, a lot of them become generalists as opposed to specialists. And so generalist means you go inside of a law firm or wherever you're working and you're doing all these different things that you might be doing general corporate M&A, I don't know, corporate finance, like all these different things. And so that is not necessarily a marketable skill. One thing I just wanted to talk about too, real briefly, is if you look at jobs on any job site, Indeed, LinkedIn, Law Crossing, wherever you're looking for a job, the jobs do not say, I want someone that does corporate and real estate. They say, I want someone that does a specific type of corporate. I want someone that does real estate leasing. I mean, these are very specific jobs that law firms want. So law firms, the best law firms, are always hiring specialists. They're not interested in generalists because a generalist is not an expert in anything. So it's very hard to go out in the market and say, to a serious company, like I do corporate general work, I do finance, I also do M&A. Can I help you with your M&A transaction? No, that company is going to hire someone that's an expert. If you want to move laterally to the best firms, they're going to hire someone that's an expert. When I review resumes, BCG, all day long. I've been doing it for 25 years. And I used to think, oh, I can only place the people from the biggest firms and the biggest law firms, and, they went to the best schools and stuff, and everybody else is not marketable. Well, the reality is that every attorney, regardless of where you went to school, and I've learned this over time, but it's true, every attorney is marketable if you're an expert in something. It could be family law, it could be patent, some type of patent law. I mean, even in patent law, there's hard sciences, which is like, and like physics and computer science and electrical engineering, and then there's life sciences, which is like, biology and chemistry and things. And so you have to be an expert in one of those. And even in, if you're a life sciences person, they'll hire people that are just chemical, they'll hire people that are just biology. And, so everybody wants a specialist. Clients want specialists, law firms want specialists. And so law firms can, if you go to the right law firm, you can become a specialist in something. If you're at a smaller law firm and you're a generalist, it's going to be much harder for you to ever get ahead. Litigators can be specialists. They can be intellectual property. They can be intellectual property litigators that work on behalf of, I don't know, companies, sued for a certain type of patent infringement. They can be, I met an attorney at a awesome firm, like an AmLaw 10 firm, on a plane not too long ago. And I was sitting next to him, and he was talking to me about, he was a partner in one of these top 10 law firms, doing extremely well. And early in his career, he actually started at the same firm and was still at the same firm. He worked for a partner that was doing mergers and acquisitions for biotech companies that had just recently brought some kind of drug to market and wanted to merge into a larger drug company or something. That was all he did. He'd been doing that his entire career. And when the partner that he was working for wanted to retire, there was no one else in the country that did this specific type of mergers and acquisitions. And so the partner basically gave him all his business, which was a huge book of business, like, $15 million or something. And this guy took it over and was a specialist. And because he became a specialist, which was smart, he was able to, get ahead in his own firm. But the idea is that, large companies only pay for specialists. They don't pay for generalists. They pay for the best specialists that they can possibly find, and that will get to the heart matter quickly and then can work more rapidly. I read the biography of Michael Dell not too long ago, and he was talking about when he got ready to take Dell public or something, like, he was, think of all the big firms in Texas, there's huge ones, but he ended up going to law firms in New York City. I think he went to like Wachtell, a specialist that did exactly, what he did, the best in the world, didn't worry about doing it with smaller companies. He went to, with firms in Texas, he went to the best specialist. And so the more a specialist you are, the more money, if you're in a major corporate practice area, you'll make. And the fewer people that are going to be doing the work, the more you're going to make, and you're going to be the obvious choice. Again, this is an example that I talk about a lot in webinars, but if you had some sort of awful cancer, like some sort of bladder cancer, you would not want to go see a cancer doctor that worked on brain cancer and lung cancer and also bladder cancer. You would seek out the best possible person because your life's at stake, that was an expert in bladder cancer and that had written papers about it, had given presentations, been doing it their whole career, done a residency in it. That would be who you would choose. Well, clients are the same way. So, there's a lot of litigators, but, there's fewer litigators that went to Harvard Law School. There's even fewer litigators that were in the Harvard Law Review. There's even fewer litigators that went to Harvard Law School and the Harvard Law Review, clerk to the circuit court judge, or even the Supreme Court. So that is a very marketable skill if you have those things, and if you go to work at the right firms. There's a lot of corporate attorneys out there, but there's not a lot that have expertise in doing something as simple as securitizing auto loans. Like that's an actual practice area that large law firms do. That people get that expertise. So when you're choosing a practice area, you need to think like, what's going to make you unique among the hundreds of thousands of attorneys out there that are competing with work. And how many attorneys are you competing with work for? It's over 1 million. So there's over 1 million attorneys out there that you're competing for work for, and that's your competition. And so you need to have something unique to offer, and you need to have something that you can sell in the market. And again, it doesn't matter if it's immigration law. It doesn't matter what it is. I know woman that's probably the most successful immigration attorney in the country. She did the same thing. She graduated from, I think, what was it? It was, yeah, Southwestern. And then when she graduated from Southwestern, she, was in a position where she'd worked one summer for an immigration attorney and didn't think the immigration attorney was maximizing her practice by taking on the largest clients. And now she's one of the most sought after immigration attorneys in the world. She specialized in something. She's an immigration attorney that does special talent immigration, meaning bringing people in the United States that has specific special talents that the government will give them the fast pass and that's all she does, but she's specialized. So again, anybody that hires a doctor, lawyer, any service professional, when they have a lot of money, will hire the best person for whatever it is they're doing. That's how you would be. So you need to think in a long-term matter about your career in a way that's going to make you like the most sought after person in your field. And if you're not, then that's a problem. So, if your senior attorneys have been practicing law a long time, you need to refine and make yourself look attractive. If you look at your resume and you're talking about all these different practice areas and stuff, that's not sellable. I mean, think about it. You need to have one skill. So you need to make your resume look like you're doing one thing. I was working with a guy that was a trust and estates attorney. He was like 12, 13 years out of law school. For the past 3 or 4 years, he'd been doing trust and estates, but not completely trust and estates. He was also doing some litigation and real estate. And then in the jobs he had before that, he was doing insurance defense and all this other crap. And so he wasn't getting a lot of interviews. And I said, let's just make your resume about trust and estates. Just beef up, talk in a lot of detail about what you've been doing in trust and estates for the past 3 years. And then don't talk about other practice areas. And then when you talk about your other jobs, just say you're an associate. Don't say anything about your practice area. I mean, about what you were doing. And that guy went from like not getting hardly any interviews to suddenly getting 15, 16 interviews out of maybe 30 or 40 firms we sent him to that had openings. I mean, this is incredible. This is what happens when you have an expertise, and it's never too late to reinvent yourself. You need to have a skill that's in demand and that people will pay for. And if people aren't willing to pay for it, then it's going to be essentially an unmarketable skill. And if you're not an expert in something, people are going to go to people that are experts. So, if your current firm isn't giving you training in something that is going to enable you to be marketable and enable you to distinguish yourself from over 1 million attorneys. I mean, the number is actually like 1.6 million. I don't know how many of those are currently practicing, but that's how many people are admitted to the bar. And, so you need to have a skill, because if you don't do that, the market's not going to pay for it. Law firms won't pay for it. I told you about the types of jobs that are advertised, and clients in the market won't pay for it. Clients are going to pay for people that are experts. So someone wants a trust and estates attorney, they don't go to someone that's a litigator, family law attorney, all these different things. They find the best trust and estates attorney they possibly can. And you need to look like, whatever you do, you need to think, can I look like on paper? Do I see myself looking like one of the best in the world at something like that? Do I see myself as someone that a client would want to pay for? Because that's what clients pay for. And the better your skill, the bigger the bigger firm you're going to, the bigger the clients could possibly be, the more money you can often make. So lawyers do make $5-8 million a year as average profits per partner in law firms. But all those people have marketable skills, and you need to get out of the employee mindset. You should never think of yourself as an employee. Thinking of yourself as an employee is about the stupidest thing you can do. People that are employees are employees. They're fungible. If you're an employee, then all sorts of things happen. I mean, this mindset's going to drag you down. It's going to make you just a drone worker, like a product on an assembly line. And if you have that employee mindset, you're not going to ever, be able to, you're just not going to see the big picture. You're not going to understand, what you're doing and stuff. And people with employee mindsets, it's just amazing. Like, I was out with my ex-wife, and she was meeting a guy that she placed at a big firm, like an AmLaw 20-year firm in Los Angeles. He'd gone to the University of Chicago. He was like 5 years out, and they were having this meeting at the sushi restaurant. I was just kind of sitting there. The guy was saying that he was, keep in mind, this guy went to the University of Chicago Law School, did exceptionally well there, went to like a Ivy League college, and he was a 5th or 6th year. And he said he was very upset because the law firm was no longer, only the partners could park in the best spots inside the garage of the building, which probably cost $300-400 a month. And the associates needed to park across the street. This was outrageous, and he needed to move firms. Really, absolutely serious about this. I've seen people leave firms, for very similar reasons all the time. These are commodities. These are just employees. And if you have that employee mindset, employees, what they do, by the way, is an employee will think of themselves based on how much money they're paid. They will always look for the best, the most money. They will get involved in, gossip about their employees, the people they're working for. They will get upset about working too hard. They will take the side of other associates and gang up on, that are upset with the management of the firm partners. And they really won't think that, wait a minute, these people are here training me. I could be an owner of this business. If I play by the rules, I'm getting the skill that's going to help me. These people know what they're doing because they're partners in these firms. These are people that I should respect because they've been doing this for 20 plus years. They're paying me to do this. And that's how you need to think about it. And they're training me in something, in an environment where I could make millions of dollars a year and have employment stability for the rest of my life. So, but most attorneys decide that they're employees, and they think of themselves as employees. They think of themselves. I mean, I've seen people like do the stupidest things. I had a woman I was working with not too long ago, and she did international trade work involving customs and other sorts of things at a law firm. And she got an offer from a law firm that would train her in this very niche customs work and inside of working for, this law firm. Was not many firms in the world and the country that did this, and very marketable skill. She got it. And she got an offer from the firm, and the offer paid $50,000 more than she was making. But she knew that there were other third years, which she was in the firm, making $200,000 a year. And she thought it was outrageous, even though she was getting a 50% salary increase, in the ability to become an expert in something. There's few people in the world doing, instead of a generalist like she was doing. She knew that there were people that were third years who were making 200,000. And the law firm said, well, she doesn't have a third-year experience. She's got 1 year of experience as far as we're concerned, because she's been doing all this other stuff. So she literally turned down the offer, and is staying at this firm making $50,000 a year less, because she was just thinking, like, as an employee, like, I need to get this amount of money and stuff, instead of thinking of someone like, hey, if I get this experience, I could start my own law firm. I could move to other law firms that have this work because I've become an expert. I can become one of the best people in the world in this practice area. But she didn't get it. She thought it was all about being an employee and getting the most money possible. And this is some of the stupidest thinking that people ever develop. I mean, if you're going to succeed, you need to think of someone that's learning a trade, that's looking up to the people that have that experience, and just realizing that an employee just looks at everything much differently. They don't think about, like, this could be a business that I could take over one day. If I do a really good job, I can have incredible success by becoming, a partner here, and all this sorts of stuff. And they think about it differently than someone that runs a business. There's all these stories. I mean, people like, starting off, I know one guy that started off in an auto dealership. I think he was mechanic or something. I don't remember, custodian, and he just threw himself into the business and kept getting advanced because he was just looking out for the owner and doing all these sorts of things. And over the course of like 15 years, he became literally the owner of the dealership, because he just went in there as someone that didn't have a lot of experience and treated this job like it was the most important thing in the world. Like, he was working with the owner, he was doing everything the owner wanted. He took his side and not the people that were, pissed off about whatever the hours and compensation. He thought about it like being an owner of the business, and changed his life. And so, someone who wants to run a business, commits for the long run. Being able to, commit, needs to, you need to think about things, in a way, that's how, you need to think about things. And so, some people will join law firms with the idea that they're going to try it out for a few years and see how they like it. I remember when I was at the Stewie Valentine firm, they took all the new associates, that were there and joined within like the past few months, and they had, or every year, and then they had a big event for them, and we would all go out to dinner and stuff, different groups. And I couldn't believe it. I was meeting with these associates like in New York, there were new associates, and they were all saying, yeah, I'm just going to go here and get a few years of experience and try it out. And, and then maybe, and it was just like crazy. Like, why would you go into something and not commit? I mean, most people, a lot of people do. And if you're not committed, you're not going to make it. I mean, that's how, you would run a business. You would get out the people that aren't committed. And so, no major client, by the way, is ever going to hire someone that's not committed. Would you hire someone to help you in a murder case or something if you were wrongly accused of murder that wouldn't commit to your case and be all over it? No major law firm is going to hire someone like that or ever going to advance someone like that. You need to always try to get close to the people with the most work. I talked earlier in this webinar about modeling, like the importance of like modeling people that are successful and watching what they do and learning from them. And so attorneys with the most work are the ones that you should be learning from. I mean, not only can the work they have keep you secure, because if they like you and you're treating them with respect and like and you're learning something from them and helping them in a way that you look like a business person that could take this over, and you're learning about how they bring in clients. You're learning about all these things, and then you're picking up their skills without knowing it, and you become a better attorney. You learn all these things that can make you so much more successful in the long run. People, by the way, that go to very good prep schools usually are much more successful than those ones that don't. People that go to very good colleges are often much more successful than those that don't. People that go to very good law schools are often much more successful than those that don't. And the reason is usually not has nothing to do with the classes they take. It's the people you surround yourself with and their goals and what is important to them. I remember when I went to University of Chicago, I got there and I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I knew I had to work hard, but I had no idea about careers. I had no idea about any of this. Like, I was either my parents were attorneys or anything like that. And, I didn't know what I was going to do with this. And I was surrounded by people that were, very, very intent on going to law school, knew what you needed to do. And I picked up from what they were talking about. I'm talking about only going to the best law schools. I was surrounded by people that wanted nothing more than to work in investment banks, to become investment bankers or whatever. And they all talked to each other and they all had goals. And so when you're around people that are very successful like that, you pick up on their thought patterns, you learn how they're thinking about things. I mean, how would you think about things if you're a major corporate attorney in a top law firm in the world, as opposed to someone working in a small market, just doing all sorts of like little corporate matters? I mean, you're going to learn, things in a different way, but you need to surround yourself with attorneys that have the most work. That's the absolute goal. You do not go into a law firm and coast by working for non-equity partners or senior associates and things like that. Maybe you do that when you start, but you need to get close to the attorneys that must work because you need to learn what they're doing. You need to see how they're talking to clients. You need to see the quality of work they need to do. And then you also need to be consistent and always improving. So that means you can't, you need to have something, where you're consistent and improving. The more you do one thing, the more you'll improve. You also need to do the best work you possibly can. So, in order to get more and more work, you need to treat each assignment not like it's unimportant, but like it's the most important thing in the world. And if you do that, you're gradually going to get a reputation among people as someone that work should be given to, that you're extraordinary and not average. And when you're working for partners, by the way, partners are your clients. It's no different than having a client. So you get the chance to have clients that are very, very important when you start your career, and you learn how to service those clients. And so you don't, but most people don't. I mean, a lot of times they coast, they're not doing the absolute best work they can, and they're making mistakes. And then a lot of times people don't bill as much. So, when you're a worker, you need to stand out as the person that contributes the most. And what does that mean? You need to bill as many hours as you possibly can. People don't understand often too, like, what is billing hours? Like, how can I, bill so many hours? And the people that bill the most hours will often gravitate towards the type of work that they find interesting and that gives them, makes them feel good about themselves, that where they have skills, where they like improving. So that means if you don't have the type of skills that a corporate attorney would do, but you really like litigation because you love the conflict and the writing, that you go to something that you like and enables you to bill a lot of hours. And you think about things outside of work. You sit down and you're thinking about a client for 30 minutes, that's billable hours. I mean, these are all things, that you can bill. But in order to bill a lot of hours as an associate, you need to do work that you're interested in. And if you want to be a business owner, you don't want to upset anybody that's going to possibly give you a percentage of their business. You need to make them like you. You need to make them feel ingratiated to you and like they want to help you, like you're giving a lot more value than they're paying you, and that they like that. And the value is so great that they don't want to lose you. I mean, any product in the market, by the way, anybody that becomes very, very rich is always, it doesn't matter what they are. I mean, if you look at someone like Elon Musk, he gave people electric cars when no one else was. He gave the government gave him incentives and, to sell the cars, and gave people incentives because people wanted that. He gave the government cheaper rockets to launch things into space. He did all these things that, that provided a lot more value than people thought and they were willing to pay for. So any good product, by the way, is valued. I mean, it has a lot of value because it's providing something where the benefit that people are getting far outweighs what they're paying. So this is what you do when you're in a law firm with the people you're working for. And you never want to have anything to do with office politics. Office politics detract from your work. They have nothing to do with impressing the people that can give you work and advance you and teach you a skill. Nothing. And so you're never going to get anywhere if you want to get involved in office politics. You're never going to get anywhere if you decide that you want to be on the side of people that are against the firm, that are doing gossip, that are interested in leaving, that aren't committed. Those are not the people that you want to be around. If you do that, you're going to lose. I mean, if you're in a business, then you have to run a business in a way that doesn't make enemies that people like. You have to be close with people. So business owners, if you walk into a successful grocery store, the business owner will say hello to everyone. Walmart has greeters, is friendly. I mean, all these different places, you have to be friendly to people. If you're friendly with people, they feel good about you. They want to keep you around. They give you more work. They like you. So you're friendly and close with anyone. You don't make enemies and you don't go crazy. So, people that, if a business goes crazy and, stops providing adequate services, meaning if you go to McDonald's and the McDonald's is crazy, like they're forgetting to put, beef in your Big Mac, and they're closing at weird hours and things, that's a business that's gone crazy and you won't go back to it. So, businesses that succeed are balanced. They're consistent, and then they reflect well on the people that are using them. I mean, that are going there. So, you have to think about, what would a client think if they, how would I look to them? I remember when I was a summer associate in a huge New York law firm, I went out to lunch or something with a couple of senior associates, and they were talking about this partner that had the most business in the entire New York office. And this partner was like dressed extremely well, like in, tailored suits and expensive shirts and ties, and, everything was pressed. He looked perfect haircut, all this sort of stuff. And that partner said, basically, when I walk into a room of potential clients or existing clients, I have to look like the most, well put together, polished person in the entire room, because they are paying me to be their representative. They're paying me for that presence and to look this way. And so this is how, that a lot of times the best attorneys will think about their careers. You need to think about that even when you're in a law firm. You need to look like someone that, is capable, and the law firm should want to introduce you to clients, and you should, look like the type of business that you would want to hire. If you went to see any type of attorney that you needed something for, and the attorney was all run down and didn't have, whatever, you wouldn't want to hire that person. You'd hire the person that looked the best. You need to impress every client that you're exposed to. So you need to, when you meet a client, you need to get along with them. You need to impress them. You need to make them want to say good things about you to the partner that's giving you work to do on their behalf. You want them to trust you. You want them to call you as opposed to other people. And this is how business owners think, not employees. Employees think, I'm just here to do the work. And this is how so many people think. Like almost every associate that I speak with, meaning over 50%, think of themselves as employees. Even attorneys that are senior that don't, have any work, think of themselves as employees. No one ever makes this leap to think of no, I'm someone that wants to be a business owner. I'm someone that's here to be a business owner, like the guy that started off as a mechanic inside of a auto dealership and, you know, very quickly became the owner. So, and then the next thing that's important. So I've talked to you about learning these marketable skills. And the next thing that's important is learning to market those marketable skills. So you have to learn how to market what you do. If you just sit there and don't do anything, then nothing's going to happen. I open my mailbox every day and there's all sorts of junk mail in there. I don't look at it, but right now I'm interested in solar power. So if someone sends me something that's about solar power, I may call them. So that's because this person's marketing to me. When you get on Instagram or whatever, you're seeing all sorts of ads coming up. People are doing that because if they don't do it, they're not going to make any money. When you turn on network television, you're going to see all sorts of ads. When you listen to Sirius XM radio, you're going to be interrupted by ads like every 3 minutes. I mean, but you have to market your skills if you're going to be a successful business. All you need to do, by the way, is people just need to see you. Like they just need to know that you're out there. So if you're just sitting in an office and nothing's happening, you're not doing anything to market your skills, then nothing's going to happen. You need to give talks. You need to get out there and meet people, set up meetings just with people that could be potential clients, even if they're not buying anything. You need to write articles and you need to be seen by the people that want to hire you. I had an interesting thing happen. I told you earlier that I was a asphalt contractor. And I remember when I was like, I think I was like in college, like, just my first summer doing this or something. And I went to this guy's house and I was, putting asphalt sealer on his driveway. And he was a corporate attorney at a big law firm in Detroit. He said, "Do you have you set yourself up with a corporation to protect yourself from liability?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I'll send you some information." And so he sent me, some do-it-yourself things about how to do it. And then when I went out to see him the next year, he said, "Have you done any of this?" And I said, "No." And then he sent me some more information. And I just never did it. I kind of forgot all about it. But when I became a practicing attorney, I looked this guy up and he was one of the most, he was like the head of like some corporate practice at a big firm like Dickinson Wright or whatever in Detroit. And think about that. He's making himself seen by someone who's young that might someday need his services, although if you're going to be successful, he's marketing his skills. And I've been in situations. I remember when you can even market your skills to other attorneys. I was working on this environmental case when I was practicing, and there was this guy that was like a, eighth year associate or something in a big firm. I think it was Morgan Lewis and Kiss, and this was a class action, so there were like maybe 15 firms involved. And this guy was like just sent copying different articles and then, you know, putting them together and then writing little handwritten notes that this could help us. And this is before the days of like, a lot of internet stuff and just sending these articles out to different people in the that were also in the class action. No one else was doing this, but he did. And same kind of thing. Like I looked him up several years later and he was the head of the environmental practice at Morgan Lewis and Bacchus. He'd been an associate. And, people that are marketing their skills don't get out there. Law firms are never often going to tell you to do that. When you're an associate, they just care at that moment in time about the hours that you bill. But whether or not your value when you start is just to bill hours. That's how you're paid, and that's how they make money. The most successful attorneys are always out there marketing their skills. One of the most successful attorneys that I know is very interesting. He's got a $30 million plus book of business. He started off, I think, at a firm called Shepherd Mullen he went to University of Chicago Law School. And he decided early in his career that he'd build the 2,000 hours that the law firm needed. So he'd go into work early and build them. And then he decided he was going to spend the exact same amount of time that he billed hours going out and developing business and just meeting with various people and helping them and not charging money and so forth and giving them advice and develop this just massive book of business at Shepherd Mullen and ended up moving to Proskauer or something, which is a huge firm. He didn't like the way they billed his clients. He wanted to have a better platform for his clients. And now I think he's at Baker and Hostetler. Someone like that, makes $7-8 million a year. So he marketed his skills and, other people weren't doing that. So other people just got senior and lost their jobs or whatever, but he built himself a little empire where he's doing very well. And, law firms basically, and it's important to understand, when you're an associate. You're just there to make the money and to bill hours. It's exploitative. Any business is, but this is just how the world works. I mean, you're a worker and people are going to get as much value as they can out of you. But you have the decision if you're going to be an employee as opposed to a worker. And this is just how the world works. People that are workers have always been exploited. Whether it's the Industrial Revolution in England or whatever, but there's people that rise above that. And the people that rise above that become business owners and do well. And you're the only person, by the way, that can pull yourself out of being an exploited worker. I'm not saying, I don't think there's anything wrong. Law firms have to exploit people in order to make the highest profits. It's just how it works. And, no one is going to, come to you and, not make you exploited. It's something that you have to pull yourself out of. And you have to learn that if I don't want to continue being exploited in my career, if I want to continue to have opportunities, if I want to make the best of myself, then I need to pull myself out of this level of exploitation. I need to be seen by potential clients, and then my life and my career will change. And you need to get business. You're never going to get business by just sitting in a law firm billing hours. You need to be out there in the market. Now, you may say to yourself, well, I'm working all these hours at this big firm. It's impossible for me to generate business. That's just not true. Anybody can generate business. You have to figure out how to put yourself into a niche, and you have to figure out how to be seen. And people get seen very early in their career, and then throughout their career, and that's how they're seen. I knew a guy in law school that became a very successful politician. He would, even though I wasn't really his friend, he was just an acquaintance, he would reach out to me with messages each year and see how I was doing. And he probably did that with 100 people from the law school. And he probably did that with multiple people that he knew from outside of law school and potential clients. Always checking in with people. Bill Clinton famously, he would, I think starting when he was going to Georgetown for college, he would write down the names of every person that he met. He would ask them questions about their family, what their goals were, and he would keep all these index cards. And by the time he became president, I mean, he had a huge file of index cards, and he would always go through those index cards and check out, see what people were doing and check in with them and remember them. And you could meet Bill Clinton 20 years, after you first met him, and he would have memorized everything about you, and he would have, he built a network, and this is what you need to do. So you need to be seen. And how do you be seen? You're seen by meeting people, by checking in with people that and building yourself, something outside of the market. I've seen attorneys get huge clients and things from, being friendly to the dry cleaner and telling them what they do. I mean, it's just all these different ways. And so you need really, if you're going to be successful, you need to figure out a way that maybe you can develop, spend an hour or two a day developing business and work. You absolutely have to learn a skill in a law firm, but you actually need to spend some time developing business, and you need to figure out how to do that. It could be having dinners with people that's enjoyable. It could be staying in touch with people, and instead of promoting yourself or whatever to your friends, taking pictures of yourself out at a restaurant on social media, maybe figuring out people that you could contact. And this is the most valuable time you'll ever spend. It's more valuable than the time you want to spend watching Netflix or whatever. It's very huge. And you need to do whatever you can to be seen each day outside of the office by people that will hire you. That means you could write short articles for local legal newspapers. I mean, all sorts of things. You need to develop a personal brand, like the guy I told you that was sending around articles, and it was an environmental attorney. You need to be seen. And the only way you're going to be marketable is if you're seen. And so you need to look like also a solution to problems that businesses are having. Someone that knows something that others don't. Someone that is an expert in something. Someone that can talk about something that others can't talk about. Once I was hiring an attorney to help me with a case regarding an option agreement on a property that wasn't a real option. It doesn't really matter what it was. But I searched the internet. I was looking for people to help me. And I found one guy that had written a short article, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs about this, and that included in the article what I needed to have done. He was the only attorney I found in all of California, and called him. He flew down. I gave him a $50,000 retainer, and it was only because he was seen. That's it. Someone that was seen. And so, if your niche is small enough, by the way, like I told you about the woman that was doing software services contracts, she was seen. And so, if you're seen, you're always going to get clients. But you need to be seen, and you need, if you stay in a law firm and you don't, and people outside of the law firm don't see you, then that's a problem. And if partners, other firms that could even refer your work, that's a problem. You need to be in a position where, you're seen. I had a interesting thing happen. When I was working at this what firm it was Dewey Valentine or something, and had worked previously at Quinn Emanuel. This attorney at Quinn Emanuel, that was maybe a 7th or 8th year attorney that I was casual friends with, maybe I'd see him every couple months, referred me like to do with this transactional related trademark work because they just didn't do any of it. I didn't even do it, but he saw me and was like, I'm going to give this to someone I know, and gave it to me. So, the powers, the only way you're going to be powerful in any type of law firm, is if you learn how to do a certain type of work and you're seen in the market. And then the final thing is you need to, start selling your business to more and more people. And it's not uncommon. There are lots of attorneys in New York City, other markets that may have $50 million or more in business. These are people that have, positioned themselves in a certain way. And if you're able to do that and you learn how to do that, it's not that difficult to do. Once you start bringing in business, you do the same thing that, associates do to get more and more work for different partners. They do the best work they possibly can. They save clients money. The clients refer other big business to them. They try to keep the cost down to the extent they can and justify everything they're doing. They, make sure that the associates are doing good work, and they basically develop a business. Any partner in a law firm with business is an independent entity that's a business. I mean, I just want you to understand the people you're working for. They are businesses. Like, each one of them is a business. And the law firm pays each business within a law firm, meaning the partners, different amounts of money depending on how successful that business is. And so that's something you need to think about. And it's an entirely different world than being a worker. If you're a partner and you learn how to develop business, you are a business. And the firm, like I said earlier, only exists. The only point of a law firm is to support the partners to support partners in their business, and they take a percentage for that. Typically, how does it work? If you have a book of $5 million in business, the law firm's typically going to pay you. You're going to pretty much know you're going to make, in most firms, 1.5 million, something along those lines. If you have a $5 million book of business or more, 30% of that money will go to the support that the law firm provides you. That 30% is associates, it's secretaries, it's paralegals, it's the office space. Then the other 30% will typically go into a pool for partners that's distributed to the different partners depending on different rules. So, most, like I said, attorneys working in law firms will get about a 30% profit margin on the business that they're bringing in, meaning they'll clear about 30% or more of the collections of the money that they bring in. And sometimes it's a bit more, sometimes it's less. There are some firms that will pay, where you'll make 20%. There's others where you'll make 50%. It just depends on the law firm. But, in the world of business, if you think about it, a 30% profit margin is absolutely incredible. If you're running almost any type of business, if it's apart from the law, it's very, very difficult to make a 10% profit margin. It's even more difficult to make a 20% profit margin. Making a 30% profit margin is incredible. So the amount of money and so forth that you can make, in a law firm is absolutely outstanding. I mean, you can clear, very, very good margins. And if you really do want to work in a law firm and you really want to stay there, it's a very good use of your time if you can enjoy it, which is a whole other discussion. But it's one of the best possible uses of your time because you can clear 30% profit margins. Most types of businesses, like if you go out and you try to start something other than practicing law, it's not easy to start a multi-billion-dollar business. I mean, most businesses, something like 85% of them fail within a year. And if you try to do that, you will likely fail. I know all sorts of stories of partners and things that leave the practice of law to start these stupid businesses, and most of them fail. And if they had done that earlier in their career, I guess they, trial and error, they could start successful businesses. But most businesses fail. And if you go into a law firm, think of the hundreds of thousands of attorneys that are successful doing it. It's a very, very good career. And when you start bringing in business and you're able to bring in clients and so forth, you have a business that has recurring revenue, meaning there's always work going to be coming in. You can rely on the work. There are lots of clients lining up to buy your work. You need to hire associates to help you because you have certain amount of work. If you're a litigator, your clients may always be getting sued or need someone that comes in with litigation experience. If you're a corporate attorney, you have clients that will always be buying and selling companies and things and their mergers and acquisitions. But whatever practice area you're in, if you play your cards right, you're often going to have more than enough work to make you busy. And it's very exciting being in business. And when you're an attorney with business, when people are calling you for advice, you're giving work to other people to do, you're evaluating the quality of their work, you're trying to bring in more business, clients are relying on you for different things, and it's very exciting. And you don't want to be an employee. Don't think of your career as an employee. You need to spend as little time as possible as an employee. Employees have to, as an employee, you have to learn. You have to learn a skill and you have to learn all these different things. But your ultimate goal is to become, once you learn those things, is to become a business owner. So this whole framework of thinking about things can change your whole life. I mean, if you understand the purpose of a law firm, if you understand your purpose there, if you understand how to think like a business owner and not an employee, you're going to do very, very well. And the only reason to start off in a large law firm is to learn a skill that eventually you can sell. If you want to learn, if you go to a large law firm and you're just thinking about making money, that's probably not a good idea. If you go to a large law firm and you're thinking, oh, I want to get this experience in all these different practice areas, that's probably not a good idea. But if you're working in a large law firm, I mean, the benefits, by the way, I mean, that law firm has a brand. Like I told you, get the training, you'll work on larger clients, you'll learn from partners about how they do things, and you'll get support and you'll make money. But you have to be there, to really to think about it in a way that's not a job. People that work in places where they just think about it as a job and that everything's going to be all right is not going to make you happy. You're going to be happy when you develop a business, and nothing should ever be a job. It can be a place where you learn skills, you can market, and but that's about it. I mean, it is difficult a lot of times when you're in the beginning of your career and you're working long hours. You're having all these issues with being stressed and not getting enough sleep, but it's no different than being a doctor. I mean, doctors have to do residencies where they're up 36 hours at a time and then get 4 hours of sleep. I mean, anybody that's learned a skill has to do those things. But if your whole goal in your career is just to have a job, then go in-house or go to work for the government, but realize that you're never going to have a business and you're always going to be at risk of getting fired and losing an income stream. Whereas if you were to have multiple clients, you're always going to have an income stream. And if all you're doing is a job and that's all you ever think about, it's going to make you unhappy. Your life is going to be difficult because I see it all the time as you get more senior without business, and you're never going to be in a position to really be all you can be. And law firms are, they're not built to make you successful there. They're built when you're a young attorney to have employees, and very few people are able to step out of that mindset and think about, that they're learning how to start a business. And what does that mean, by the way? What does it mean when you're in a law firm starting a business? So the bigger firm you're at, the bigger type of business you're learning how to start. So if you're at a giant firm, you're at Skadden or something, you're in mergers and acquisitions, you're going to learn how to do mergers and acquisitions for very important companies. And if you take that skill and you're able to do mergers and acquisitions for very large companies, these companies are going to pay $2,000 an hour and so forth for their attorneys. And if you learn how to get that business, you're going to make a lot of money. If you do mergers and acquisitions for a smaller firm, like in the Midwest or something, of like 20 attorneys, you're never going to be able to do mergers and acquisitions for $2,000 an hour for large companies. You're going to be limited to the size company, that you're working on, it's going to be very, very hard to get out of that. So I'll take a quick break. When I come back, I will answer questions. I will answer questions about anything to do with this webinar, but also any other questions you might have. You can put your questions in chat and I will answer them. If you're logged into Zoom and you're worried that it'll show your name or something like that, I will never copy your name. I'll just copy the question. So thank you, and we'll be back in just like probably, I'll be back in like 1 or 2 minutes. Thanks. All right, so we will go to questions. I think one thing I'm going to do too is just briefly, because I've been talking about how to get business and all that sort of thing. I think I'm going to show everyone a couple things that I think are, very interesting in terms of kind of things that I recommend to partners, how to get business. And so some of the things that people do, and I will make sure that I send this, what I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to show you a sample business plan of the way that people that are able to develop these types of books of business, the way they think about things. And I will make sure, by the way, that this is sent to everyone that's on the webinar, so you can see this of what people are doing. And it's important to see this because this should be kind of aspirational to you, in terms of what the highest producers do. And I get copies of, when I work with partners, a lot of times when they're moving firms and things, the firms want to see an exam, they want to see business plans. And this is kind of distilled from what I've seen over the past 25 years. So, here's loose tie outreach, just, try to talk to, different people. Sometimes people will even put this into different types of CRMs, meaning they'll track all their contacts. I know this sounds like a lot, especially if you're just working in a law firm right now, but there's a monday.com, which is a good way to kind of track people. But they put, different contacts and things like in these spreadsheets. They try to write articles. And even if you're just publishing it on LinkedIn or, JD Super Medium, like you write articles about different topics where you're seen. They learn a little bit about SEO. You don't really need to learn that much about SEO. You just go to something like ChatGPT and you ask it to put keywords in to the article related to whatever you're doing. People try to get speaking engagements. Sometimes it'll just be a webinar. The webinar could be for the firm. It could be for whatever, but you try to do things like that. Sometimes people will do educational videos and things about things. They'll post it on YouTube, which sounds crazy. Maybe you're doing aviation crash defense or something, but you can still do short videos. People will often do weekly posts on things like LinkedIn. They'll write case studies anonymous about their clients, whatever. They'll do things like that. Sometimes people will do Twitter. People can do LinkedIn ads, which isn't smart. They'll always kind of keep themselves up to, different things. They may even have newsletters that they send, just short updates with different things. I know a very successful partner at one law firm became one of these $30 million producers or something. And everybody he met, which is the funniest thing, each year he would send out this like typewritten, like single space, like report of everything that he did throughout the entire year with his family. And it was just crazy, but people liked it. And it was personal, so there's all these, kind of things. People set goals for getting clients. They try to get existing clients to refer people, all these different things, just referral sources, cross-selling, trying to get cross-selling in the firm, podcasts, webinars, all these different things. Now, people don't do all these things, but, by tracking and doing some of these things on this list, you can become very successful. So, maybe you start off doing 2 or 3 of them, but you just build these into something that you're always doing. And over time, you'll be seen. And that's, kind of, an example. So I'll make sure I send that to everybody that's on the call. Okay, so let's go to questions and answers. Yeah, but I just really hope for everyone's sake that most people never get to the point where they're thinking about their career as a business. And once you do that, your whole life's going to change. And it's not too hard. It's again, like, what I was saying earlier, it's people that are able to think about their careers as businesses. It's just a mindset shift, and then doing things that other people aren't, and thinking about, relationships and things, are different. Okay. And also, when you ask questions, if you want to ask longer questions, those are often, much more helpful. This is a short one, which I'll answer. Okay, what are the best ways to network as an attorney to advance my career? So you just need to seek out, groups of people that, that you like that could potentially help you, in your business. I mean, generate business, whatever it is. It's very interesting and there's different industries and things, but I was in the very close to becoming a professional actor. For whatever reason, I just, some things clicked with me. I don't have skills like snowboarding or climbing mountains or anything, but whatever that was, it was something I was able to do well. And what I noticed among professional actors and people that were trying to become professional actors is those people would just put themselves in every possible situation where they could network. I know one lady that, became, pretty, she got on TV series and stuff. She came to Los Angeles and decided she was going to get a job in a hair salon that she knew serviced a lot of actors and actresses in Beverly Hills. She just figured out where that was so she could network there. She would go to bars and things where she knew there were actors and producers and things that would come in. She would, go out of her way to any type of person that she could network with, she would. And this is what the most successful people do. They network and they develop connections everywhere they possibly can. I remember I used to have this ridiculous house in Malibu and I would rent it out. And Bradley Cooper came and he was very young in his career, just had been in a few things. And he stayed in this house not very long, but then left a couple bottles of very expensive like Dom Perignon champagne, flowers, and a thank you note. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And but that's somebody. What is he doing? He doesn't need wine. He's just trying to build a network of people that say good things about him. So you everybody you interact with, you try to make them like you. You try to find situations where there's people that can give you business. You network with existing attorneys in your own firm because attorneys in your own firm will become general counsels and all those sorts of things. You network with opposing counsel because they will often have work that they can't do that refer to someone else. I mean, every person you meet is a potential contact that can help you in the long run. Okay, next question. Should I aim to work at a large law firm to build marketable skills early in my career? Okay, so working in a large law firm, yes, you should aim to work in a large law firm earlier in your career. But the real benefit and to try to learn marketable skills. So if you work in a law firm, you should try to get into a practice area where you think that you enjoy. So whatever you're doing should be fun. Like you should really enjoy like working on real estate contracts and finding little things in there and fixing them. I mean, or you should really enjoy litigation, or you should really enjoy, doing defending, doing insurance, whatever you're doing. I mean, you should really enjoy because a lot of people don't enjoy what they're doing. So you should try to get into a practice area that you enjoy. Generally, people that are good at reading and writing, have always done well in school and so forth like that, are good litigators. People that, math and science and things typically become transactional attorneys. That's just how their mind works. So what is it you gravitate towards? What is it, where in your school that you enjoy doing? So you're going to be more marketable if you like something because you're going to have more passion for it and get better and better. And obviously, just it's fun. And you need to do something that, even though you may not like the hours and whatever that you think is fun. So if you work in a large law firm, the reason to work in large law firms is basically because of the standards that they have for the quality of work. So you are doing work on behalf of large corporate clients. Those corporate clients typically have general counsels that have also been, very successful in large law firms. Oftentimes they were partners. You're doing work basically for a partner that's turning in the work to them. So the work needs to be exceptional. The quality of work that's required is much, much higher than it would be at a smaller firm. When I was practicing law, there was a partner, he's no longer alive, his name is John Vandekamp. He was the Attorney General of California. And he was working there as a counsel. He was older, and he had a friend that owned an insurance company in Massachusetts. And anytime someone would come to Massachusetts and get into accident, he would refer him to work. And he, wasn't anything he was interested in doing, but he gave me these cases to work on, and I couldn't believe it. Like I was dealing with insurance defense attorneys, and they would have like paragraph broke up halfway and then started in lowercase on the next paragraph, and there was no thought that went into the work, and it was just incredible. I mean, it was like, like a professional tennis player playing a fifth year, like a 5-year-old in a tennis match. And this is just the quality of the ones I was dealing with. But when you're in a big firm, you would never do something like that. Like you learn how to do things in a very thorough, aggressive way and how to cover details and things. And so, yes, you want to try to work in the largest law firm you can. And even earlier in your career, even if you're a specialist in something, you can always often move to a larger law firm. Larger law firms, the more farther along you get in your career, if you have a specialty in something, then you can get into a larger law firm generally, because the further out you are, the fewer people there are with your skills. So you can always, if you do well in a smaller law firm and you look motivated, you have the ability to work in better and better firms. And it is the better firm you work in, the better skills you will get. So you want those skills because, again, law firms are training grounds. They're there to pay you, but really, your goal is to get the best possible training and to learn how to evaluate legal issues in a way that other people don't. The most successful people are able to come up with better solutions. They're able to argue people in motions. They're able to get the best results they can from transactions. All these sorts of things happen when you go into a larger law firm that you wouldn't learn otherwise, because it's a certain way of thinking and it's a certain way of approaching problems that big clients want. Most of the time, the big clients, big companies going up against a small company, the big company always wins because they have better lawyers, and the lawyers just basically win. I mean, they're able to spend money, they're able to figure out, different angles and, whatever. Okay, how can our firm better identify attorneys with marketable skills who will thrive outside of a big law environment? Okay, so I'm assuming that this question is from a smaller law firm trying to hire people from big law environment with marketable skills. Well, I mean, people with big law firm experience, often do very well in smaller firms. And there's reasons for that. They may have the ability to do a certain practice area, but when they get into a smaller law firm, they can suddenly develop business. I placed a guy, I think a week or two ago, and he had experience working in a major law firm, and he was an associate, but his billing rate was like $12.50 an hour or something. And he got a job doing IP litigation with a smaller firm, and that firm, the partners there billed out at $500 an hour. So, and he was an IP litigator. So he's someone that I think is going to go into that environment. He has all these contacts and people that he knows, and those people he's going to be able to generate business where he couldn't before. So attorneys can thrive in smaller law firms, but you have to be careful if you're a smaller law firm. If you're hiring someone that's only going there because they can't get a job because of the state of the market or whatever, many of those people will move if they're junior attorneys if something better comes along. Okay, next question. Thank you for asking a long question. I like long questions. I am a third year. 2 of those years I did bankruptcy and collections on the creditor side plaintiff. The clients are large lending companies, mortgage companies, and banks. I have no idea how to approach these types of clients. I'd like to develop my own business doing this. I was in the litigation department. Now I'm drafting suits and motions. I have 2 questions. Do you have any recommendations on how I could start my business? Should I ask to move back into litigation for the court experience? Okay, so collections are a business that is fairly, it wouldn't be hard business to start. There are tons of people that need collections, right now you may be doing large lending companies, but, smaller companies need that. Smaller mortgage companies need that. Smaller community banks need that. And so if you have that sort of experience, you should be able to, market yourself to a wide variety of clients. I mean, there's a huge market of people that need collections. There's a huge market for people that don't have, that don't know how to collect on judgments and so forth. I'm working with a guy right now that has some of these huge verdicts. I mean, some of them are, $200 million and things. I mean, just against Iranian banks. I don't know, it's something to do with Iran. In the United States, like seizing property and everything. So he's very good at getting all these judgments, but he's not good at collecting them. So right now he's in discussions with a firm that specializes in collections. He has a very marketable skill, and that firm does collections of against foreign entities that were property. See, I don't know what it is, but I mean, there's a business in collections. There's a business in anything, but collections is a huge business. And so you can always build your business by finding people that have verdicts, for example, that they're not going to be able to collect on, by all these different types of people that have any collections. And so drafting motions and things regarding that is a good skill to have. And so you could, develop skills on that. You say you want to get court experience. I mean, the only way to get court experience is just to, if you're doing collections, is to go into court, and people learn, get court experience as solo practitioners, whatever, and you can do that. But I think that that's a great practice area. You can become an expert in it. You can develop a specialty in it. It could be, like I said, collecting judgments against foreign entities. It could be collecting money from people you get verdicts against. I mean, there's just so many things. And so, it's a good question, but I do think you get business. You just have to figure out who needs help with that. And if you were to, I think there's even services that will tell you, will sell you collections, and collections, sometimes you can buy them for you can buy judgments for like 5 cents on the dollar and then enforce them. There's all sorts of people doing collections. That's a great question, because it's one of these niche practice areas that you can become involved in, that you could have an entire career doing. Collections are actually kind of sexy because, say someone has a, $2 million judgment, and you go and you go and you collect against that judgment, and you're trying to collect, for that judgment, then you can make a lot of money. I mean, if you have, sometimes people will pay you 50% of the amount of money you recover. So that means that if you have if you work in a $2 million collection, you could make $1 million if you're able to collect on it. So, and if you do enough of those, it can be a very good business. Give me 1 second here. Next question. Okay, I don't enjoy going to trial, but I love research and writing. Is it possible to create a business from just drafting motions or documents? Would I be more like a freelance consultant? It seems like an employee to me. Yeah, there are plenty of attorneys that all they specialize in is legal research and writing. They offer those services to other law firms, and the law firms will pay them for it. There are a lot of solo practitioners and things that don't have time to write their own briefs and do legal research. There are law firms that will pay people that are very talented just to do that. And you could even develop a business doing that, because there's definitely a need for it in the market. I mean, think of all the attorneys out there that don't have the time and things to do legal research and writing. So yeah, you can build a business for that. Certainly you could start off as a freelance consultant, but your goal is to bring in more and more business. And so you could literally have people working for you doing that if you get very, very good at it. And you can start a business. Attorneys start businesses all the time servicing other law firms. I know one woman that, very interesting story. She was in Delaware, and she was working at like the kind of premier firm there, Richards, Layton and Finger, I think that's so called. But as a litigator, and then for whatever reason, she quit, lost her job, and she just decided she was going to start her own business. And her business became contacting law firms that needed an attorney in Delaware to file different corporate documents and so forth, because that was a requirement. So she contacted firms all over the country. And even though she wasn't a corporate attorney, within a year, I mean, built a very substantial business doing like, $300,000 or $400,000 in revenue per year, charging flat fees and things to do this. I mean, just incredible, so anybody can figure out how to develop a business. Now, that particular case was a business that, had nothing to do with her practice area, but she saw a niche, and it was a great niche, and became very successful doing it. And there's all these people that figure out how to develop business with new, different types of things. Okay, what motivated you to keep pushing further? Do you have any regrets? Do you have a mentor? Did you have a mentor? If so, could I ask you to be my mentor? What is next? Is it free? Because right now I'm not working. As he is a great mentor. You give the best advice. As he is a great motivator for me. Like yesterday, I was about to give the towel, but the day joining the workshop, with different perspective of the soft skills and the market. So yeah, so I have a lot of information on BCG. Like there's a lot of articles. There's lots of webinars, like hundreds, if not thousands of hours of recording. So most of the time, I think you can learn this stuff from that. There are a lot of people out there that will hold themselves out as mentors. Many times they're failed attorneys, or they do a business. I mean, coaching attorneys and so forth. I think the most valuable thing is to, read this and watch this sort of information. One site that's helped a lot of people, I don't know why. Well, actually, I don't know why, but where I've written a lot of self-improvement articles that will help you think about, your life and your career in different ways, is harrisonbarnes.com. So there's a lot of material on BCG. But if you look at that website, let me see if I can put that on real quick. just to show you. If you look at that website, then there's a lot of questions too that can help you, things that have, that may not be related to, I don't know why that image is broken there, that, that are related to, how do you, think about your career and your life. So this stuff can be very helpful as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of material that I've done, but, typically when you're looking for information, you want to, use stuff that I've written, but there's also, there may be other things. I mean, one of the things I think is very powerful is to, listen to, I mean, certainly I encourage you to read my stuff, but I mean, there's a lot of good things out there. There's like Anthony Robbins can help you think about things. You can buy maybe his old CDs. I don't know if he's still, or whatever, but there's just a lot of things that can help you get motivated. One of the most popular books out there, which is helped millions of people, is called Think and Grow Rich. That's another book that will kind of give you a perspective on how to think about your career in your life. But you need to, if you're hungry and you seek out this information, then it will change you. I mean, anybody, listening to these webinars is very, very smart, because this information will change you. I mean, just what you heard today will change you. So you need to expose yourself to people, and not the only one. Anthony Robbins is very good for just general motivational advice. Think and Grow Rich is good. There's just a lot of things out there. People that are hungry, read this. There was a guy that I was actually coaching for a while. When I coach people, I charge quite a bit of money. I think it's like $5,000 a month, and I talk to them twice for like an hour and a half. But so it's not something that I have a lot of time for, and with individuals. But I remember I was coaching this guy that started off at a small law firm, and then now is a partner, probably one of the top 10 most prestigious firms in the country, and failed the bar a couple of times and everything. He read all my articles on this and said that this helped him become successful. I don't know. I mean, had he just been following Anthony Robbins, a lot of the same stuff would have happened. But you get information, whatever that's going to help you. I mean, he seemed to think that this was helped his entire career. But and I hear that from people from time to time. I mean, but the point is that this particular guy was very good at seeking out information. So he was a litigator, but even when he was like reviewing documents and things, he would be listening to books on tape, and then that would motivate him. When he was exercising, he would be not only using that time to exercise, but to listen to information that would help him. So the hungrier you are for this sort of information, like anybody, I commend everyone for watching this webinar, because 99% of all attorneys don't think they need any help or won't take advice. But that's just an example of someone that really sought out a lot of information and became successful because of it. My information is helpful, but there's tons of sources of information and people out there that will try to help you. But anybody that's trying to help you with information, you always need to be a little careful, because information can be culty. So you may start off going to a free workshop, and then they try to sell you some kind of course, and they try to sell you a retreat and everything. So a lot of this stuff is just geared towards whoever has this information making more and more money. And generally the best information out there is free. Sometimes people go to church, and that helps them get more in touch with God, and that's information that's free. I mean, there's all sorts of information you can get. Okay, hi Harrison. This is a great webinar with fantastic advice. Thank you. I have an ambitious goal to gain litigation experience across several practice areas, and I'd like to work at any size firm, so long as I continue to grow my skills, contribute broadly. That feels like my tribe, without having to switch firms or relocate. How long or how many cases would it take to achieve expert level proficiency with a marketable skill in one area? In one interview, would it be appropriate to inquire about the firm's approach to associate development, such as formal or informal programs that facilitate cross-training or rotations of associates interested in approaching multiple litigation areas? Okay, well, a couple issues here. So you can become a generalist in litigation. And if you become a generalist in litigation, you're going to be competing with what is over 50% of the country that is involved in some sort of litigation. So most attorneys are litigators. Very few attorneys become very, very specialized in litigation and do one thing. So again, if you're an intellectual property litigator, it could be defending telecom companies against whatever disputes over putting cell phone towers. I mean, the more specialized you are in litigation, typically the better skills you're going to have. If you want to just learn litigation with people that you like, that's fine. Typically litigation is going to be less focused, and you're going to learn more because mid-sized to smaller firms will, take on a variety of different matters, whereas larger firms may be more specialized in different types of litigation. So finding your tribe just means you go into some place, typically, you talk to people and you click with them. It's no different than, going out on a date. So like I'm single and I go out on dates, and if I meet 10 people, I may only feel connected, like there's something there, after a 1 hour dinner or whatever, with maybe one out of those 10 people that would be worth pursuing, that I connect with for whatever reason. We have the same goals, we think about the world in the same way. So each law firm is a tribe, and different law firms have different types of people in them. There are certain law firms that, are mainly women. There are certain law firms that are mainly African American. There's certain law firms that are with men that are very athletic. There's certain law firms where, I mean, every law firm has a different culture where everyone went to a top 5 law school and clerked for a federal judgment. So, you find places that you're comfortable with. Many times when an attorney is looking for a job, they take the first job that they get, which, if someone likes you and sees something in you when they interview you, I mean, most law firms get an awful lot of applications for jobs. So if someone sees you and they like you, then that gives you a good opportunity. I mean, those are people that like you for whatever reason, if you feel comfortable with them. One of the things I brought this up, I think, in the last webinar, I go into law firms all the time. If I go into 10 law firms, I will get like kind of a vibe that just I'm really uncomfortable with, or just I don't connect with, for maybe like 5 of them. It could be, personality attorneys, it could be, people looking me in the eye versus not looking me in the eye, it could be all these different things. And then I'll go into like a couple, and I will just have like I'll click with the people, they will click with me, and these will be, relationships. I will, go out with people there and they'll talk about their personal life, and so will I, and then we stay in touch, and it's a nice thing. But in most law firms, that you interview with may not be your tribe, so you need to figure out where you're comfortable with. If you are around people that like you and you like, then you're going to do well. People just click with one another for whatever reason, and you need to be around people that you click with, and the culture needs to be right. And if you're around the people that you click with, then you're going to have a better career because you're just part of that group. I know one guy that went to Harvard Law School, and he was working for a mid-sized firm in Los Angeles. And, there were like maybe, not a ton of associates, but maybe like 10 or 15 associates. And almost all of them were Jewish men. And so they interviewed this one guy, and this guy was my friend. And he said, he's really good. We're kind of talking about it, but he's just not going to fit in here. It was religion-based, cultural-based, whatever. So that would have been a bad move if that guy had gone to work there, because he wouldn't, be part of the whatever this tribe was. Some tribes are religious, other firms will have people that are all athletic. Other firms will have people where everyone goes out and does coke together. I mean, I'm serious. Like, there are very good firms where the associates and partners will go out on the weekend and do cocaine. I mean, it depends on, what you're interested in. So you need to be with people that you're comfortable with. Sometimes people drink a lot and they can pick up other people who like to drink a lot, and firms are composed of that. I mean, it can be positive. Sometimes everyone in the firm goes to church. Sometimes they're all Mormon or whatever. I mean, there's just different firms that are all Democrats or all Republicans. So every firm is a tribe, and you need to try to do what you can to fit in with that. I mean, I go out with some people that I know, and we'll just talk endlessly about, how great Trump is. And then I'll go out with other people and they'll talk about how the world's falling apart because of Trump, and they think they need to move out of the country. I mean, so those are, if I was to be friends with people like that, I mean, I would have probably one that, but be the people that were part of that psychology. So that's the most important thing. And if you find a firm that's your tribe, you're going to do much better. So the other question is, when is it appropriate to ask about associate development or formal and informal programs that offer cross training? That's thinking like an employee. So, any place you go into, you need to think of like a business owner. So if you go into a firm and you're asking about associate development or formal and informal programs, these are things, that you need to figure out on your own. You need to think like a business owner. So, if the firm wants to talk to you about associate development, formal and informal programs, that's really important. Those are good things. I was talking to, a great firm, and I think I brought this firm up earlier, in Los Angeles, and they were looking for corporate M&A attorneys. And the partner I was talking to was a great guy. He said, the difference between going here and a large law firm is we will actually train the associates here to go out and bring in the type of clients we want. Like no one else is doing this. And that was, that firm I think would be a great opportunity for a lot of people. Shepherd Malone, but great firm. So it was a fantastic firm and training people and showing them how to do things and doing high quality work. So certain firms will say this sort of stuff to you when you're talking to them, but I would go into a firm and think about it as like, is this a place where I'm comfortable with people? Is this a place where I can grow? Is this a place that's going to offer me, where I'm going to be comfortable? Because if you're comfortable around the people, you're going to do much better than if you're at a firm where you're not. Okay, how usually law firms see the fact that I start talking on social media about my work, could that cause me problems as an employee? So you can talk about your work, but talking about your work means talking in generalities about your practice area, developments in your practice area, or of case studies that no one could ever figure out who the client is. I mean, so you can talk about things in social media. That looks good. I've seen people not get offers or have offers withdrawn because the firm goes under their social media site and sees something that they don't like that they think reflects badly on them. That could be, partying. It could be, I saw one woman that was very talented. She was like an 8th-year associate. She had an offer with a group of partners to go over to another firm, a larger firm than she was at. And she was basically going to go over there with a promise that they'd make her partner in 1 year. And on her social media account, she had posted something like 4 years ago saying, what a drag practicing law was, and why would anybody do this? I mean, something along those lines. And they saw that and took away our offer. So your social media account should reflect how you would want the law firm to see you and how you'd want clients to see you. There's nothing wrong with having pictures of your family or trips and things, but you have to be careful. You have to be careful about taking sides in political issues. I mean, if you want to put all this stuff on there about free Palestine, that's going to cause you problems with certain firms. If you want to support Israel and put all sorts of stuff on there, that could cause you problems. You need to think in a way where all the where people that are reviewing, who's going to be looking at your accounts and what's that going to say about you, and is that going to potentially upset potential clients? I am one of the federal government attorneys who was thinking about other options. I have a high-profile AG appointed position. Even before 2025, I was considering going back to private practice. So it's not necessarily because of 2025 developments. Are there any law firms looking at government attorneys? I think maybe my higher profile position would be something that a firm would want in terms of its work would want in terms of its workforce. I'm realistic that I like business. Yeah, so you just need to find a firm where your title and what you did is going to look good to their clients, and where they think you can, contribute. So people in the government are able to get positions in law firms again. The problem is when you're a law firm, I mean, you have to think about it in terms of the law firm things. So the law firm thinks that if you went into the government and you instead of private practice, that is the career path that you want. So you've made a conscious decision to get out of a law firm and go into a different career path where developing business and working for paying clients instead of the government is not important to you. So that means it's going to be harder for you to find a job unless there's a firm where your title and things can help them generate business or look very good to the clients to give you work. So how do you do that? Most government attorneys make the mistake of just kind of sitting there and applying to jobs on different websites and hoping something will come up and talking to friends that may have gone and to law firms and things. But the real way to get a position, anybody that wants to get a position, would be to try to do kind of a broad search. So what does a broad search mean? So there's all sorts of ways to do that these days, and I will show you real quickly what I would do if I was you. So I would, you can, ChatGPT or DeepSync, or let's even take a look at Grok here. Give me some Grok. So I would say, oh, Grok's not found. It's not good. Grok. So you can run, different types of searches. I think I have an account here. You could say your question is, I was federal government high profile AG appointed position. So I would say, what are the top boutiques firms in Atlantic states? It's high proportion, proportion, was it former high profile United States? It's arguing saying the United States, I can't see miscreants or Canada. States, Attorney General Boston. Okay, so we'll have ChatGPT do this research, and this is what you should be doing. I mean, anybody, in this particular point in history should be, doing this type of research. And then, so then you see, obviously Corbett Kim, all these different firms. And this is very interesting. I mean, these are a lot of firms you may not have heard of. And so, these firms have a lot of people like you, and it's only listing 20. And, and then, actually it keeps going. It's amazing. And then let's see if Grok does the same thing. Then another trick you can use with ChatGPT, these are geographic. You can see Washington, D.C., even in Florida, Mid-Atlantic. And then, then you could even ask, sometimes you could ask, is there a better way of asking this question to get more results? Even ask, it's kind of fun. So then it will tell you, you can even ask it how to get better results. So then you do this. So then you go this question, which I didn't ask before. So asking ChatGPT to ask a better question is, even more important. So anybody, by the way, you can do these kind of searches in, in whatever practice area you're in, and suddenly, you're getting even better results and a lot of smaller firms. And look at this, all these former AGs and things, state attorneys. You can focus it by practice area, like white collar investigations. And then, here you're getting, a lot of other firms from Grok that do the same thing. So all these types of firms, this is saying it's only getting 15, then you could come back and you could say, the same thing with with Grok. So you come back and get even more results. So the point is that what you do is you use research tools to identify different places, and then you try to maybe contact people that are currently in those firms that may have done the kind of work you've done, seeing if they might have an interest in you. You may know, people that are, that you may know people in common and all this sort of stuff. So you would contact all these firms. These people get jobs like this every day. It's very easy if you're doing strong research, and you can do this kind of research in pretty much every practice area if you want to find different places. And this is finding, I've read off in Kessler, like Kaplan, Hecker, like all these different firms. It's very exciting. So you can see here, you have all these. So that's what I recommend, is doing whatever you can to research things. I mean, this search I just did here could change the course of your life, because all of a sudden you found places that you never would have found before if you just sit around waiting for jobs. And this is one way that, that I get a lot of people at BCG jobs, and sometimes they sit there for, months unemployed, and then they learn these strategies, or I do it for them. They get jobs. And thanks everyone for these great questions. It was awesome. Okay, if you're a 20+ year successful attorney, how much do grades matter to law firms if you're respecting your field? I went to a top 10 law school, but had a rough first year. I was just in the middle class, not a good test taker. No one cares. There are certain firms like Gibson Dunn that will always look at your grades. I mean, that's just how that firm operates. But in the majority, no one cares about your grades, even after you've been out like 5 years. It's just completely irrelevant. They're more concerned about your experience and what you do, and your amount of business and things. Absolutely does not matter. It's great that you went to a top 10 law school. That matters. It looks good to clients, but in law firms. But no, your grades really have nothing to do with your career after you've been out, even more than a couple of years. I mean, I've seen people, I saw one woman, it was just the funniest thing. She went to University of Minnesota Law School and had these just awful grades. I mean, like D's and things. And then I don't know how she did it, but when she graduated from, and she might have been a law review, wrote in a law review or something, some sort of diversity. I don't know how she did it, but she was on law review there. And then she got a federal appellate clerkship, like somewhere amazing, like in the Eastern District of New York or something, working for a circuit court judge. And she came to me to place her, and she got these offers from, I'm not even gonna say the names of the firms, I don't want to hurt them, but I mean, amazing, like, the top firms in the country, and they never even looked at her grades. So, your grades, and other firms did, and we're just appalled. But there were firms that didn't even look at her grades, were top firms. So Grades are not that important in your experience in one board. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Thank you for all this information. I think it is a great perspective to have, especially as a new attorney. What is your advice on how to get started narrowing down specific marketable skills? As a new attorney, I worked in civil litigation and criminal defense in a small law firm and absolutely hated it, mainly because of who I work for. Now I'm searching for a position doing estate planning, which is my original goal in the first place. This is a good idea to apply to a firm where I can do some general practice things until I find my passion, or should I just deep dive into something right away? Okay, so if you want to be a trust in estates attorney, there are all sorts of things out there, which let me even see if I can, personally, give me 1 second. It's very interesting. I mean, what you can do, with any practice area. I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, so let me just rule in estates. Who's can you see the screen? Just in the States. Okay, so look, new business model, free master class for lawyers, estate planning training. This is just an example. I mean, there's all sorts of things like this, but you can actually find different things online that will help you. How to get business, trust and estates training. I mean, there may actually be courses on this sort of stuff. So, yeah, free master class. I mean, all this sort of thing. Different discussions, different CLE things, it's just estate planning for business owners. Wow. Well, anyway, so if you want to get into a practice area like that, it's probably a good idea to try to learn about it, before doing it. If you're trying to get a job in a practice area where you don't have the experience, just think about it from the standpoint of a law firm. They're going to hire someone that has experience doing something instead of someone that doesn't have experience doing something. So if you want to be a trust and estates attorney, my advice to you would be to take courses, to learn about it, to study it, and you can do a lot of that on your own. And then once you do that, you will be able to impress people that may need a trust and estates attorney to hire them and hire you at a lower level because you've taken all that initiative. It's obviously interesting. But law firms do not like hiring dabblers. And so what dabbler means, something that does one thing, they do another, they work in one type of firm, they work in another. That's a dabbler. So if you don't like litigation, you may be someone that's suited to do trust and estates, which again, or the criminal litigation, which again is someone that's transactional. So typically people that are good at math and science and things like that will gravitate towards. So my advice to you would be to try to get experience doing something like that. Try to get hired by a small firm, even a solo practitioner that will appreciate your drive and stuff, trying to get that experience, learn about it on your own and see if you like it. But trust and estates is an amazing practice area. It's actually in the country right now, it's the most marketable and the best practice area. Trust and estates attorneys with experience are getting like multiple interviews. It doesn't even matter where you went to law school. I was working with a woman that went to an unaccredited law school, meaning it's not ABA approved in California, it might have been online or something. And she graduated from law school and started her own trust and estates practice and didn't even have a ton of work, like maybe $150,000 a year or something. But she wanted to start looking for a job as a second-year attorney and got all these interviews and offers and things, and which is almost unheard of for someone that doesn't go to an accredited law school. So great practice area. And, but you're going to need to show people a reason that they should hire you. I'm an 8-year litigator with a lot of good skills, worked at AmLaw law firms in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but no book of business, despite always getting along with past clients and being praised by them. What are the best options now at a more senior stage? Is it time to get out, hang my own shingle? Would a law firm still make sense? Yeah, so if you're an 8th-year attorney, you can always, find a position in a law firm. It's probably not going to be, that may be another AmLaw one law firm, or it may be at a smaller law firm. If you're an 8th-year attorney, keep in mind that if you graduate from law school at the age of 25, your career realistically could go for at least another 50 years. So just because 20% of your time has been getting training and stuff doesn't mean that the other 80% you can't develop business. So you should never give up. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. So just remember your career is about 50 years. So you can learn with all the training you've got, the U.S. Attorney's Office and a major law firm, that's great. You can take that and get a position. So maybe it's not at an AmLaw 100 law firm, but in every city, There are, at a large city, there's thousands of law firms that do some sort of commercial litigation. And smaller markets, like mid-sized market, like say you want to work in Cincinnati, Ohio, there'll be at least 100 firms that do it. So you just have to find different places to apply to. All you need to worry about is, all they're concerned about is, all right, can you do the work that we have? We have extra work. We need an associate. We can make money off you. So you just need to apply to a lot of places. That absolutely shouldn't give up. You should go to a firm where the best firm that will hire you, and then start learning about how to generate business. I have webinars about it. I have, all these things that I've done about generating business. And so, study that and learn how to do it and just figure it out. It's as simple as that. So, okay. What should we prioritize when screening lateral hires to ensure long-term retention in big law setting? Sure. Well, there's a lot in a non-big law setting. So every law firm, and this is for people looking for jobs, every law firm should be asking, okay, so these are really the 5 questions. This is for people interested in looking for jobs as well. So can they do the job? It's pretty simple. It just means, do they have the skills to do it? But are they someone that will work in the office when we need them? Are they someone that, has the skills? Are they someone that work the hours? Are they, all these sorts of things? Can they do what the job requires? Are they willing to bill the hours we require? All that sort of thing. So people are asking that question. And that pretty much usually comes up when you look at the resume, and then very quickly when you screen something, if they start asking questions about remote work or whatever, I mean, that may not be what you want. So can they do the job? The next one is, can they be managed? So certain people are manageable and others aren't. So anybody that's working in a law firm needs to be managed. Partners are managed by other partners and the administration of the law firm. Associates are managed by partners. And so management just means, is a person going to do what we expect of them? Are they going to do the work? Are they going to follow instructions? Are they going to, listen to us and everything like that? So that's very important for a law firm. A lot of people can't be managed. So you need to screen and see if the person looks like they can be managed. And some people can't. I mean, you have all these people inside of law firms that are quitting because they don't like that the law firms caved with the Trump administration about various things. Those kind of people probably can't be managed. And so, if someone's going to leave because of political thoughts or something, I mean, that's someone that probably can't be managed. So anybody that works in a law firm needs to be managed. They need to follow instructions. They need to do things the way people want them to do. And so you can usually pick that up by people's attitude. The next thing is, will the person do the job long term? So long term means, are they going to commit to the job? Do they look like someone that's going to stay? So if you're hiring someone and they've been at like 3 different firms in 5 years, they're probably not going to stay. If the person has, quit jobs for different reasons or whatever and is unemployed, they're probably not going to stay. If the person, all these sorts of things related to looking stable. So someone that's been at a large law firm for 5 years says they want to go to a smaller law firm because it will enable them to bring in client. I mean, who knows? But you have to look at whether or not the person is going to commit. People that want the job, so when you interview them, they come across as very, very enthusiastic. They have reasons for wanting the job. There's things about your firm that stick out that they like. That then they come across as someone that's very, very enthusiastic, is not ambivalent, and just really is enthusiastic. If someone wants something and they come across that way, as opposed to someone that's kind of evaluating you, then they probably don't want the job. And then the next thing is, do you like the person? So if you don't like the person, they're going to be difficult to work with. I mean, you want to be around people that you like, and different people are likable and different people aren't to you. So, and there's nothing wrong with an attorney not being likable by one firm. I mean, an attorney that's not likable by one firm may not be likable because of cultural or other issues. I mean, who knows? They may not fit in with your culture. But they might fit in with better culture. So do we like them? So those are the main questions. The most important, I think, being long-term commitment, because if someone's willing to commit, then they go through ups and downs. That's good for clients. It's good for partners being able to depend on someone. So I like the commitment issue long-term, but I mean, there's certainly other issues, that you can look at, but I like doing the job long-term and then doing the job like the way you want it to. Okay. Does your firm help attorneys who already have a job offer from a firm evaluate the offer and offer any suggestions for negotiations? Yeah. So, I mean, you can, always negotiate offers. The problem with negotiating offers is sometimes when you do that, the law firm won't like it and they'll back away. But, you can play offers off each other. You can You can, evaluate the offer based on what other people are making in similar sized firms. We do that with our candidates, but it's better like when a recruiter does it because then it's less personal than if the attorney's doing it themselves. And it can be difficult, but I mean, we don't offer services for that or anything like that. But, negotiating offers is, something you need to be very careful of in terms of the possibility of actually losing the job if you negotiate too much or leaving a bad taste in the employer's mouth. But, definitely people do negotiate offers. And when I negotiate offers, I mean, most of the time I'm successful in getting something. It can often be dramatic salary increases, but it just depends, on your skill set, how many people are in the market that do the same thing. And, and that's kind of the main thing I would say. Okay, let me just see here. Okay, next question is, how do I know if I should leave my law firm for a better opportunity? Well, typically, if there's a better opportunity, it's not just going to be about money, it's going to be about the training and the sophistication of the work. So if you're doing something right now and you're working for smaller clients, you want to work for mid-sized clients, that's a better opportunity if you're a young attorney. If you're working for a law firm that pays significantly more money, that's a better option, if you're a young attorney. So, I mean, you have to kind of look at, the type of firm or what exactly, the better opportunity means. So a better opportunity as a young attorney is going to be working for larger clients, getting more of a niche experience. It's going to be marketable and, often finding a place where you're more comfortable and feel like there's more advancement opportunity if there's not that at your current firm. So you have to kind of evaluate all of those issues. And then once you evaluate them, you can always come up with a conclusion, if it makes sense for you to potentially, leave. So, okay, well, I think there are some extra questions, additional questions, and I can answer a few of them real quickly. The first one is, how can I move to a law firm in a different state without bar reciprocity issues? So if a law firm, the reciprocity is difficult in that state and you need to take the bar, you certainly can do it. I mean, I recently just a few weeks ago placed a woman from New Orleans in California and didn't have the bar. She was a senior attorney. So, but she was in a very niche practice area, like antitrust, I think. So, if you have experience in a niche practice area and there's a lot of demand for you in that market and there's not enough people like you, then you can definitely move. Typically, it's going to be, there has to be something special about your background. Like maybe you do aviation law, maybe you do education law, maybe you do a certain type of tax, maybe you do a certain type of patent law. I mean, you have to, typically the firms are going to want to see, some sort of expertise in something. Often you can move to smaller markets where there's not a lot of attorneys like you. So people like someone that's in, I don't know, Chicago may want to move to California. That there may be more than enough attorneys in their practice area in those large markets. So the law firms have no incentive to hire someone that could potentially fail the bar and stuff. So, in that sort of situation, you would typically, you have to target smaller markets inside of California, not Los Angeles, but, places where not everyone's trying to work. And then if there's not enough attorneys in that market, then the law firm will take a risk on you. So everything's about the law, supply and demand. But if you don't have any type of expertise, or there's nothing special about your background, then the law firm has no incentive to hire someone that's not, the skills won't translate into that. Okay, how do I balance billable hours with business development as an associate? So everyone has, different things that are must. So, for me, I work very hard, but I absolutely, for me, a must is exercising at least an hour a day. Like, I don't care how busy I am, I don't care where I am, it's a must. And so you have to have things that are just, rock solid rules that you're always going to follow that are must, and things that you will always do. Like you either develop business, or you do something else. And so just putting in and setting aside something and making it a must and, building it into your day or your week is how you do it. So a must for you probably is billing 40 hours a week or whatever it is. And that's something that is a goal. And then you make a business development time a must. I mean, that's how people do things. People don't get into great physical shape by not making exercise a priority. People don't, bill a lot of hours by not making that a must. And so you need to have things that are just ironclad rules, that are must. Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I'm almost done with questions. I mean, there's some questions here that I kind of covered in the webinar, so I'm not going to answer everything. But if there's any more questions, I will answer them. Okay, what is important to think about? So just if you have no more questions, just ask them now and answer them. Otherwise, we'll get on the road here. What is important to think about when you consider a lateral non-equity partner position? What is important to know so you can be successful at the firm? Okay, so as you consider, if you're looking at a lateral non-equity partner position, the most important thing to think about is, does this firm have a lot of ongoing work that will support me as a non-equity partner? And do I see myself being able to be there for a long period of time without any business? And so those are very good questions to ask. So there are certain firms like Kirkland and Ellis has a lot of non-equity partners. Those are great. I mean, they love them. Most of them have employment stability. They do good work, and there's employment stability at that firm where there might not be that type of employment stability at other, am law firm or another mid-sized firm. So you have to look at employment stability of the non-equity partner position. Like, is this firm going to have work that they can do, that I can do for a long period of time? So that's the first thing. The next thing, to think about is this just a short runway? So sometimes law firms will bring in lateral non-equity partners, but it's a short runway, a couple of years to develop a book of business. Is that realistic for me? Is that something I can do? And so if you take a non-equity partner position, is that going to be a requirement? You're going to have to bring in business. And if it is, then, and you may not be in a position to do that, then that's probably not the best move for you if you don't think you can do that. So one firm's going to give you work in the long period of time, others not going to give you work. And so the whole goal, by the way, of careers, and this is, something that should be tattooed, on every attorney, if you would like tattoos, always have work. So you always have to have work. So if you stop getting work as an associate, as a partner, anybody that stops getting work dies. And so that's why careers die. They put themselves in positions in-house where the work runs out, or they lose their job, or they put themselves in positions in law firms where the work's going to go away. So you always need to have work. So that's the number one rule of all careers, to always have work. And so the best way to always have work is to develop your own book of business. If you don't develop your book of business, then it's to find a platform where you're always going to have work to do. So maybe that's what the lateral and equity position is. But whatever you do, you always have to have the work. I mean, that's just the only possible solution to any career, is to always have work. Once you lose work, you die. And that happens to so many careers. So always have work. I mean, it's just hugely important. I wish there was a better way to get into that, but it's very, very important. Okay, so exercising an hour a day is a must. Not sure how people are doing it without that. How do you go about business development? So again, business development is a learned skill. So it's something that you figure out. If you are, looking for a significant other, you will figure out how to get it done. You will, go on dating sites, you will network, you will do whatever it takes to get it done. And so if that's important to you, so that's how you do it. If exercising hour days, most people don't do that. It can help clear your mind, take your mind off work, make you more productive. But business development is just something that has to be a must, and you have to, work it into your day. And it's not like people think like, oh, I'm going to get this big client, or this big matter is going to come through. I mean, you should have so many irons on the fire one time. You should never rely on getting one client. Business development just needs to be something that you do all the time. Like sometimes people will just think, oh, I'll just call this one person and try to get some business, but that's not how it works. You can't usually develop career based on one person. I mean, business development has to be something that you're working on at all times. I'm sure there's no more questions. Oh, this is a good question. Okay, so this is what type of firm is best for learning practical client-facing skills right after law school. So anything that's consumer-facing. So consumer-facing means, working on behalf of individuals. So individual work. So what is individual work? Individual work is across the states, family traits, family law, immigration, etc. Immigration, personal injury. So people don't realize how much money and how successful you can be doing consumer facing work. All the time these people come out like, oh, I didn't go to a top law school. Like I didn't, I didn't get good grades in law school. Like I didn't get a good job. That's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the people that are the most successful in their careers, often and their happiest, are people that don't go to the best law schools, that don't have like this high aptitude of practicing law with great LSAT scores and things, and never had good grades, and they go into doing trust and estates or family law or immigration. I can't tell you, I mean, the attorneys that I know that went into these practice areas, it's not always the case, but I would say, you know, out of the attorneys that I know that are the most successful, I would say more than 50% of them, I mean, these are the very most successful attorneys, did not go to top law schools, did not do well there, never got jobs at good firms, but whatever, they learned one of these practice areas and built like substantial businesses. And just by doing consumer facing work. So if you want to do trust and estates work and you want to develop your own firm or whatever, go work at a trust and estates firm. I don't care if you make $60,000 a year, you're going to learn a skill. You want to be a family law attorney, make huge amounts of money if they do it right. Same thing, go to work for a family law attorney. Just learn from someone for a few years or whatever it takes to feel comfortable and then start your own practice. It's not that hard. And you get one divorce could be $300,000. I mean, there's a lot of money in all these practice areas. You can build up a huge pipeline of trust and estates work. There's just so much opportunity. I just can't really emphasize enough how important it is to get, to go someplace where you get practical skills. And anybody that thinks because they didn't go to a good law school, they didn't do well in law school, they didn't get a job. I mean, it's just ridiculous because you can do very, very well in any type of consumer facing practice area. You can learn all this stuff. You don't need to work for people very long. You can learn immigration, you can learn personal injury, you can learn family law. I mean, there's tons of other, consumer facing practice areas, but I think the smartest thing, I mean, and again, I know tons of people from large law firms that concluded they were never going to bring in major clients. They were never going to learn how to bring in, Tesla as a client or something. And if it did, it was going to take them 10 years. And they decided to, take their, Harvard law degree and become a family law attorney. I knew one woman I encountered in New York. It was the funniest thing. She went to Yale Law School was a family law attorney. And I represented her. And then I don't remember what happened exactly, but she ended up starting her own practice. And it was like 5 or 6 years after I represented her. And I started seeing her like quote in the New York Times and like, Wall Street Journal about these divorces and articles on law.com. So she took a Yale law degree and maybe she could have taken that and gone to work in the State Department or stayed at a big firm or whatever, but she did that and just became like nationally famous. I know an immigration attorney that did that. I know personal injury attorneys that are incredibly rich, like, settling like a $30 million auto accident or something and making, $10 million. And I mean, it's incredible how much money you can make in consumer facing work. And immigration work repeats itself, trust and estates work repeats itself. You get these clients and they stick with you for, their, forever, their entire lives. And I mean, I'm working with these law firms right now. I mean, they'll have trust and estates clients and, there'll be accountants and all these people involved. But I mean, their fees, I was talking to one yesterday, a trust and estates guy, and he was in Palo Alto and was looking for someone that had experience at a big four accounting firm to come in and help with tax matters and trust and estate. And he has clients like these people that are, have huge estates, hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, where he comes in and he charges them like $500,000 to do all this trust and estates plan. I mean, there is so much work in these consumer facing practice areas, and most people don't think about it. And often the smartest big firm attorneys conclude after working there, working like crazy in major law firms for several years that they're better off trying one of these practice areas, and they do well. I mean, it's ridiculous how well some of them do. And, you don't need to be, incredibly intelligent or anything. You just need to, the big thing with all this is bringing in the work. And then, and then after that, it's kind of all done. Good. Let's see. It doesn't look bad to stay at a firm for only 1 year, or is it okay because you leave to go to another area? Yeah, so if you leave to go to another geographic area, maybe you go home. So you're working in one city and then you go home to the market where you're from. That is, doesn't look bad. That's a good thing. And you can learn something. You can work in your home market. It's not bad to move from to another after a year. If you move to a place that does better work or is a better fit for you, it's not bad to move from a firm for only 1 year if you want to work in another practice area and you get a job like that. So no, it's okay to leave. I mean, if it's not advancing your career, and taking it the direction you want. Like maybe you're a generalist and you want to be more specific in a practice area. And there's all sorts of good reasons to leave. So yeah, it's fine to stay at a firm for 1 year, but you can't make a, you can't be doing that too often. First, it's not leave as in move. Is it okay to, just look at, okay, well, yeah, I think that answered that question, hopefully. Yeah, I don't see any other. Let me just see here. All right, well, this question right here, I'll just answer real quick. Does working in a law firm help me become a well-rounded attorney? Not necessarily. You may be getting a certain type of work that you don't like. When you're young in a law firm, you're often given, large law firms, you're given work that some other people don't want to do, like discovering things. But yes, it will help you become a well-rounded attorney because the longer you work there, the more experience and the more sophisticated work you will get and the more things you will do. So if you're a litigator, you may not do depositions for the first couple of years, but then you learn how to do them. And there's all sorts of benefits to working in a large law firm. Well-rounded to you might mean doing different practice areas. Well-rounded attorneys typically don't do that well. You want to be trained as much as you possibly can in your practice area and then do, better and better the longer you do. Okay, one more question, I think, and this isn't a great question, but I'll answer it. I mean, it's not a great question just because it's not. What are the benefits of working with a legal recruiter like BCG Attorney Search? So good recruiters will have access to jobs that you would never find on Indeed and stuff like that. They will have access to the market of people that aren't hiring. They will prepare you for interviews. They will negotiate offers. They will make sure you're exposed to the market in the best possible way. So most recruiters work in response to just like a few job postings. Most recruiters work with only people from large law firms. So that's not the majority of the market. It's only like 3% of the market is people working on the top 200 law firms. So, if most recruiters are only working with 3% of the market. So if you're working with a recruiter like BCG that's working with the other 85% of the market, then that's going to help you get positions. BCG, what we do differently is that we will find firms that will hire you or have work for you, even if there's no openings. We're very good at that. We, study the market and know places that have interviewed people like you before, even if they don't have openings. So it's access to information. At one point, we calculated that the amount of money and cost you put into our database was like over $100 million, which is just insane. I mean, it certainly doesn't throw off $10 million in profit a year or anything like that you would expect with a $100 million investment. But it's very, very good. And it helps us identify places that are likely to hire you. It makes sure that you're applying to openings as they become available. We encourage you to keep applying. I mean, there's all sorts of benefits. Some people don't like our system because they're afraid. They're afraid of rejection or whatever, but you have to work with a recruiter you're comfortable with. There are lots of recruiters, like small recruiters that some even just working out of their house, and they may have 1 or 2 jobs from employers that and have a very good relationship with the employer, and they may be able to get you into interviews and other things like that you may not be able to get on your own. So sometimes, it doesn't really depend on the size of the recruiter. Individual recruiters will sometimes have things. Sometimes if you're in a very niche practice area and someone calls you about a firm that you might not even be familiar with, and they say they have an opportunity there, then that would be smart to use that recruiter. So there's all sorts of reasons to there's all sorts of reasons that a recruiter can help you. And generally, most partners, like I've called partners before, large law firms, it was major partners there and just left a voicemail. And, they called me back. I want to hear about opportunities. So a lot of times the smartest partners are always willing to talk to recruiters about different opportunities. It's just, you have to kind of be in that mindset too, that, because you're trying to learn about the market in advance, what helps you the most? Is it LinkedIn? Is it recruiter? I mean, recruiters definitely could help. I mean, it's a huge, benefit for people to use recruiters, but not everybody's comfortable with it. And just because a recruiter won't work with you, most recruiters, again, are only working with the top 3% of attorneys out there. And that's just because you get rejected by those recruiting firms doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Actually, there's something wrong with the recruiting firm because they don't know how to get you into that other 97%. So I would never take it personally when a recruiter doesn't want to work with you. Okay, just finishing here with the interview, he kept pressing me about leaving my first firm after under a year. I explained that it was during the Great Resignation. I lateraled for a signing bonus, but he didn't believe me and wouldn't let it go. Everyone in Zoom looked uncomfortable. Is that normal in big law? Yeah. So, when you leave a firm, you can't leave just because someone is going to give you a bonus. You have to leave for reasons, and when they ask you why you left, you have to leave for reasons that look like you were trying to become a better attorney, not that you were just sitting there as an employee, up for the highest bidder. So that was a mistake. So when a law firm's interviewing you, they're always going to want to know why you left your last firm. So there's different reasons you can give. One would be getting better expertise in my practice area, working with better clients. It would be, that the firm didn't have enough work. It would be, advancement or whatever. But those have to be the reasons, because when a law firm's interviewing you, what they want to see is they want to see that you're on this upward trajectory, that, whatever you're trying to do, you're trying to advance and become a better and better attorney, not that you're an employee. And, if you were interviewing someone, they said you just left because of a bonus, what are they going to think? They're going to think that the same thing will happen to them. Like, you join their firm and they integrate you and they hire you and they onboard you and they introduce you to your clients, and suddenly someone gives you a better bonus and you leave. That's insane. So you need to, for all of these firm discussions, you need to basically portray any move as a way to lateral for something better that advances your career. Those are the people that get hired. People that have bad reasons for leaving, that don't, it doesn't work. A higher salary doesn't work. It has to be about the clients, about the quality, the sophistication of the work, the fact that maybe there's no work, that it was a much better firm for your practice here. You get to work with better clients, all that sort of stuff. That's how, law firms like to think about it. So again, anybody that's interviewing, never say things that make you look entitled, that make you look that you'll leave if something happened, for simple reasons. It always has to be about advancing yourself. All right. Well, thanks everyone for being in this webinar. Again, I would commend everyone for spending the time doing this. It's, one went a little long, 3 hours, but everything you learned today could change your life. And that's my goal, is that, you spend some time on this, and then you learn about how to think about things, about how to interview. This person just learned about what they're doing wrong in interviews, how to integrate into large law firms. Well, here's another question. I'm sorry, I'll just answer this one. Should I be doing cold calls for business development? Talk about how law firms are getting their clients for a couple seconds, please. Okay, so most attorneys in law firms will get business in different ways. So attorneys, partners will often get business when associates leave and become in-house counsel and they have good relationships with them. Partners will get business from existing clients, giving them referrals. Partners will get business from stupid things like giving talks. I went to this thing once, I couldn't believe it. It was in Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was taking this class in franchising. And there was some sort of franchising seminar that was being put on by Hunt and Williams, I think. And they had these speakers get up, and it was some of the most boring stuff. I mean, I couldn't believe it, talking about procedures and things. And there were all these people there that owned, Subway franchise and all this stuff. And I listened to these guys drone on for like 3 hours, and I thought it was funny. It was so boring. And at the end of this presentation, all these franchisees like came up and wanted to get business cards and things. They were all invited to some lunch, and it's just, I'm sure they got a lot of business out of it. And it was no, I couldn't even figure it out. I was taking the class what the guy was talking about. Remember what different people were talking about. So, you can get business that way. Cold calls, some people do that in firms. So there are firms where they will get a list of all the companies and things that were sued the day before, because there's like lists in LA County and things where you can get a list of all the different lawsuits filed, whether it's employment or commercial litigation. And then they'll have, junior partners will call and they'll try to set up dinners and talk to people and things. So that's one way, the people, get business. The other way is just basically out there to be seen, which I talked to you about the franchising thing, to develop connections, to get along well with people on the opposite sides of things, to be part of industry forums, to write, all these sorts of things. So you're never going to develop a huge book of business usually by cold calling, but there are people that do. I mean, they just will call someone that was sued and they'll say, hey, I'd love to take you to dinner and talk about this. There's no obligation. I'd like to offer you some free advice and things. Well, if you do that with, 10 people a week or whatever, and one or two, it works out, and that's 50 per year. And maybe when you go out to the dinner, 25% of them hire you, and you can get a pretty decent book of business. People that are in corporate law will go out and set up meetings with different companies and tell them how to prepare for a merger, and they'll just no cost. I mean, There's all sorts of ways to do it. So you watch what partners are doing, you develop systems and things. And I think I've talked about a lot of that today. So, and again, it's something that you just figure out. I mean, I told you some examples, but it's really like a long-term play. You need to develop the best relationships you can with people when you're at work. So, you develop a very good reputation with other associates. Some of those associates will leave and become general counsels. You'd be seen as someone that's good at your job and takes it seriously. People remember that. I'll just tell you a quick question thing. When I was in high school, in college, I took it like unbelievably seriously. Like it was, I don't know, I was just took it seriously. And then when I became a lawyer, almost immediately, friends of mine or people that knew me that started their own businesses, started calling me with work. And this is, what is 25, 30 years ago. By the time I was like, 27 years old, we've been out of law school for a couple of years. I mean, I had like $300,000 in business. And it wasn't even things in my practice. I was a litigator and I was doing like website development contracts and things. But it's just because people saw me taking stuff seriously. Like obviously I take what I'm doing seriously here. And it's just how I am. But anytime someone takes something seriously, people are going to want to give them things to do. I mean, you would want to give work to someone that takes things seriously. And so, getting that type of reputation is important. Getting along with people is important. But making business, a priority is also important. But great questions. Thank you. So that's it. I will be back next week. I hope this was very helpful to people. I will remember to send around the business development worksheet. And, thank you, everyone. Congratulations for spending all this time, because I think it's could make a major difference in your life. And have a good rest of your week.